It was the day of the official naming ceremony. The baby princess, who was thought to be mute, suddenly spoke and called out, "Dad." Her words immediately captured the affection of her distant father. In her past life, she had been an S-class hunter and the final survivor on Earth. The Demon King was the one responsible for the extinction of humanity. He was the same man that was standing right in front of her. Although she was the last person alive, she was determined to finish her quest to kill him. This was because her entire family had been killed by him, following a very intense battle. Did she really want to accidentally knock off the Demon King's mask? It was only then that she could see his face clearly. She did not expect him to be her old colleague, but their shared good memories were not enough. That could not overcome the hatred she felt for him killing her family. Therefore, before the Demon King had a chance to speak, she raised the sword she was holding and struck him down. A system notification confirmed that she had successfully finished the quest to kill the Demon King. Right at that moment, she fell down to the ground. She attempted to use the system to check on her physical state. However, the system continued to show error messages. After she tried many times, the system finally started responding again. She inspected her condition and found her organs were failing quickly and could not heal by themselves. For her, this result was actually a great relief. It was too difficult for her to continue living alone in so much pain. She would finally be able to see her family again. The system suddenly began asking her frantically if she wanted to receive her quest completion reward. Fiona grew more and more annoyed by the system's constant questions. Curious about what the system could offer a dying person, she decided to click the accept button. The system immediately started to show error messages once again. She could not hold on any longer and finally collapsed. In her last moment, she heard the system notification one last time. Reward accepted. As an extra reward for finishing a rank SS quest, her past life skills would be moved to her new life. Her magic circuit rank was also going to be upgraded to S+. Fiona could not believe even death did not free her from the annoying system. What did it mean by a past life? While she was feeling very confused, she was suddenly jolted awake. She heard the familiar system announcement. "Congratulations, you have been reincarnated." Fiona looked down and waved her very tiny hands. She was completely shocked that she had been reborn. But wasn't she a little too young? Besides, everyone else in the world had died, and she was the only survivor. If she was reborn in a world like that, who would be there to care for her? She was angry and began cursing at the system's pop-up message. She demanded to know the reason it had to reincarnate her as a small baby. However, when she calmed down, she saw that everything around her looked very clean. In her past life, the Demon King had destroyed everything, so she guessed this was not her original world. This meant that other people must exist in this world. She only needed to call out to them. She tried to call for help as loudly as she could, but she quickly discovered that she was unable to make a sound. This situation was very bad. Luckily, her nanny Elsa entered the room at that exact moment. The nanny gently teased the baby. Then she took her into her arms. "Your Highness, today is your naming ceremony. Are you nervous?" Elsa then took her to the banquet hall. Seeing the room full of people, Elsa seemed very nervous. "Don't be nervous, Your Highness." After hearing what she said, Risha immediately imagined fairy tale stories and began to feel excited about her future. However, the gossip from the crowd quickly ruined her good mood. She learned that she was known as the Mute Princess, whose development was very delayed. At this ceremony, if she could not make the sunstone glow, her princess title could be taken away. Risha sighed, knowing her situation was not very good. At that moment, Elsa lifted her to a stone and told her to put her hand on it, saying it would glow if it detected magic. Risha touched it with doubt, and the sunstone in the air immediately burst with a brilliant light. This was a sign that she had very powerful magic inside of her. The emperor and the priests approached. "Hear my words. The princess has proven her royal blood. Now, I will give the princess her name. Atricia Luster. From now on, she will be called Risha." When Risha saw him, she felt very excited because he looked just like her father from her past life. So she quickly cried out, "Dad!" Strangely, the moment she saw him, she was suddenly able to speak. The emperor was also very surprised to hear his daughter speak for the very first time. He could only take her into his arms when he saw the small baby smile sweetly. His own heart softened without him realizing. It had been 13 years since her father died in a battle. So when she saw the emperor, who looked just like him, she could not contain her feelings of longing. Maybe this was the reward that the system was talking about. It allowed her to see her family from her past life once again in this new life. To her great delight, it was not just her family from her past life who was here. Even Uncle Gideon was here, serving as her father's trusted comrade. In her past, he had watched her grow up from childhood. He was just like a second father to her. His death next to her father completely shattered her heart when she was only 12 years old. She now felt wonderful, because she could see them both alive in front of her again. But soon, they both had to leave to take care of government business. She felt sad to see them go. As she returned to Elsa's arms, the fact she was reunited with them still made her feel extremely happy. She had not made any sounds for so long that her pronunciation was quite strange when she spoke. She decided she needed to find chances to practice her pronunciation. Just then, Elsa suddenly grew excited. "Oh my, Your Highness, I believe it is time for you to eat. Please wait here for a moment." Then, the large nursery was left with only her inside it. Risha lay down and began to think about everything that happened today. A system pop-up appeared, showing she had finished receiving rewards, but she could not remember getting any. When she got ready to click on the pop-up to see the details, she found that she could not reach it because it was too high. She decided to use her voice to command the system to open the details for her. However, her speech was not clear, so the system kept saying, "Incorrect command." After she tried several times, she kicked the system pop-up with her small legs. She suspected that the annoying system was targeting her on purpose. Just then, she suddenly heard a voice ask, "What are you doing?" This surprised her. She looked up and saw a face that was very similar to her dad's. Could this be her brother? The moment she saw him, she was lost in her memories. In her past life, her brother was the one family member who stayed with her until the very end. To block an attack from the Demon King, he pushed her away and took the full force of the attack himself. His last words told her to run away quickly. He was really a complete fool. The face of her brother from her past life slowly merged with the silver-haired boy in front of her. Risha could not stop herself from crying very loudly. This made the boy feel very panicked. "Please stop crying, little sister." While he was trying very hard to think of a way to make her stop crying, she suddenly reached out and grabbed his hair. She pulled him right into the crib and then started hitting him with a lot of loving little punches. This caused him to cry out because of the pain. He truly did not understand what he could have done wrong, but his confusion only made Risha angrier. She grabbed his hair again and hit him. "You fool! Who said you could leave me all alone?" Luckily, they had been reunited once again in this new life. The loud noise quickly alerted all of the maids. They scolded her brother right away. "Prince Rupert, you are supposed to protect your little sister, not make her cry." Rupert felt that this was very unfair. Unfortunately, from inside the crib, he could not explain what happened. After he climbed out of the crib, he pointed at Risha as the one who was responsible. The situation then became very awkward, as the maids did not believe the baby princess, who could only drink milk, would do that. This made Rupert feel so wronged he was about to cry. Seeing him in this situation, Risha thought it was a little funny, so she decided to take the first step and jumped into his arms. Then, she whispered a quiet threat into his ear. "Don't take this so seriously. If you continue to insist, you are going to have a difficult time." Rupert covered his ear, not able to believe that his 1-year-old sister was actually threatening him, but he quietly accepted the unfair situation. After all, it was his job to spoil his little sister. After trying for several days, Risha was finally able to open the system successfully. The system right away sent a notification that one of her quests was now complete. It seemed that her interaction with Rupert last night had somehow resulted in her taming him without knowing. The quest was completed almost immediately after it was issued. She was truly amazing, just as she expected. Just as she was getting ready to finally receive her reward, the system began showing all of its error messages again. She was very tired of this annoying system that always seemed to break down at important times. However, Risha did not plan on giving up so easily. Finally, after trying countless times, the system gave her some compensation rewards. This was expected. It always did this when there was an error, but she still felt very annoyed. Anyway, she decided she should claim the reward first. Collecting the compensation reward went surprisingly well and smoothly. The system then gave her an S-class skill stone. When she excitedly wanted to see what new skill she had gotten, she was completely shocked the very moment she saw the skill's name, the butt slap of encouragement and growth. Using this skill would activate or recover a target's magic circuit. but it was limited to 5 uses. Risha wondered what kind of a strange skill this could be. She imagined what would happen if she used this strange move on Uncle Gideon. He would probably hug her with great excitement and would not stop nuzzling her. Just the thought of it was terrifying. For now, she decided it was best to seal the skill. When she closed the skill pop-up, many quest completion notifications appeared on her screen. These all looked like quest records from just after her birth, that she had completed naturally as she grew. It appeared that the system really wanted her to grow up well. Was it possible that the Demon King would appear again in this life? But she made herself stop overthinking, since she still had not even seen her mom yet. As she thought about the compensation reward, Risha started clicking the system randomly, trying to cause another malfunction. After messing with it for a while, she finally made the system show an error again. She successfully received an E-level item called a, quote, growth potion. As an S-class hunter in her past life, she would not have looked at this item, but now she desperately needed it. She drank the whole bottle right away. A system notification told her that her growth rate had increased by 1%. The effects of the potion were very clear the next day. Everyone saw Risha quickly finish a whole bottle of her milk. The watching maids were all very happy. They then tried feeding her baby food. Seeing her eat it so well, they cried with joy because their past attempts had all failed. After she finished eating the baby food, her growth rate increased by another 1%. After that, she began holding the railings of her crib to practice standing up. Elsa thought that this would be a very good chance for her to learn how to walk, so she took her out of the crib and began to encourage her to walk towards her. Risha obediently tried to walk very slowly, but she eventually stumbled and fell over. Luckily, the B-shaped pillow that was there kept her from bumping her head on the floor, but the maids were already very happy with her progress. She had walked 5 full steps, all by herself. To celebrate her learning how to walk, the maid made marks on the floor right away, which made Risha feel a little embarrassed. Elsa then picked her up with a look of relief. If Her Majesty the Empress could see you now, she would be so very happy. After Elsa said this, everyone's faces showed sadness. Risha knew something was wrong. It seemed that since she was reincarnated, her mom had never visited her, even though she met Dad and Uncle Gideon. Was it possible that her mom was just too busy because she was the Empress? She was determined to find a chance to ask someone who would most likely know the actual truth. So when Rupert came to find her that day looking very excited, she put on a very sad expression and started calling out for her mom. However, when he heard this, Rupert's expression suddenly changed in a dramatic way. He shouted, "I don't know," at her, and then ran away, calling her a fool. Seeing how he reacted, Risha had a bad feeling. She guessed her mom might no longer be alive. As she thought about this, she could not help but begin to cry very loudly. In her past life, when she cried, her mom would say not to cry unless something was very sad, and she shouldn't waste tears. She remembered her mom's words and became strong. But if the person who said that was gone, what was the point? In her past life, her dad was the one who left first. Was it now her mom's turn in this life? This annoying system would really not allow her to have any peace. After learning that her mom might not be alive, Risha started to lose her appetite. She was also always in a very low and sad mood. This made the maids very worried. They quickly brought her many different toys to try and cheer her up. However, the effects were not very clear. Risha knew she could not go on like this. The maids were worried she would go back to being the half-wit princess, for her own sake. And for the maids who cared for her, she had to pull herself together. Finally, she walked over to the toys and began to play with them. This made Elsa feel a great sense of relief. But as soon as she picked up the toys, Risha saw something was wrong. They were not normal gem blocks, but were actually magic stones. In her past life, these could only be found by killing monsters. She did not expect them to be so common here. When they saw her arrange the blocks correctly so fast, the maids excitedly called her a genius. Also, her very cute appearance made them all want to cuddle her. Their over-the-top reactions left Risha feeling speechless. But if her mom were still alive, she probably would have liked these magic stones. When she thought of her mom, her mood dropped. Seeing this, the maid picked her up right away. "Your Highness, let us go and see Prince Rupert together." Soon after, they brought her over to the training ground. They arrived just in time to see Rupert being bullied. Several children of ministers were surrounding him. They mocked him for having no mother or magic, and told him to kneel before the Archduke's son. They also said the son of Archduke Billund would one day be the future emperor. Risha became furious when she saw them bullying her older brother. How could they dare to treat her brother this way? The attendants were just watching from the side. She was so angry that she shouted at them, "Hey, banana head, shut up! Do you want to get wrecked?" Her words immediately got the attention of all the 3 boys. When they saw it was her, Akira pointed at his head and mocked her. "Who is this?" "It's the half-wit princess. It seems you have also gone crazy." The useless prince and the half-wit princess really are a perfect match for each other. Risha pointed at him angrily for a long time, but she could not speak. This made her very angry. She planned to teach that little brat a good lesson. Unexpectedly, someone else acted even faster than she did. Rupert grabbed Akira by his collar and roared, "Don't you dare say that about my little sister!" His action got the attention of the attendants. They rushed over with panicked looks on their faces. But they were not there to protect Rupert. They knelt to beg Akira for forgiveness. "Lord Akira, please forgive Prince Rupert. He is young and does not understand." Then, they tried to make Rupert apologize to Akira for what he did. Akira then became very smug. "That's right. Get on your knees and beg me. Then I will be kind and forgive you. I may even let you live here until you are an adult." Hearing this, Rupert bent his knee a little, which made Risha feel very anxious. How could her brother be bullied like this? The next second, Rupert suddenly rammed his head into Akira's chin. This knocked him directly down to the ground. "You want me to apologize to you, bastard? You must be dreaming. Now get out of my palace." As the only prince, Rupert failed to make the sunstone glow at his naming ceremony. The sunstone not glowing meant that he did not have any magic. In an empire that valued power above all, people without magic were not worthy of becoming the emperor. This was true even for the noble prince. Since then, Rupert was called the, quote, useless prince. No one seemed to care about his personal feelings. When he asked to learn the imperial arts, he was met with cruel mockery from his teachers. But even with all of that, he never gave up on trying to improve himself. This was because he wanted to become a strong source of support for Risha. So if anybody ever dared to bully his little sister, he would be sure to fight back against them fiercely. As he looked at Akira, who was half dead on the ground, Rupert's gaze slowly turned cold. Akira's followers were scared by his actions. Today they saw the shadow of the cold, ruthless emperor in him, which was very terrifying. Only Risha gave Rupert her complete and total approval for his actions. This immediately caused his heart to soften. His sister was truly the best. To encourage him, Risha reached out her small hand to pat his head. But she embarrassingly discovered that she could not reach his head. Elsa extended her hand, offering to lift her up, but Risha stubbornly believed that she could do it all by herself. So Rupert decided to let her try one more time. Even though she stood on her tiptoes, she still could not reach his head. She then accidentally fell over. She finally gave up. She had not expected her brother to be so tall at just 7 years old. Then Rupert suddenly lowered his head down to her. He gently took her small hand and then placed it right on top of his head. "How about that? Can you reach me now?" Although Risha found his showing off to be annoying, she still gave him some kind words of encouragement. Just then, the unconscious Akira suddenly woke up. He started by harshly scolding Rupert, calling him a worthless fool for daring to hurt him. Then, he started to punch and kick his own followers. Finally, he snarled at Rupert again, telling him to kneel and beg for forgiveness, but this time Rupert and Risha ignored him. This made Akira completely furious. He began using magic to attack them both, but Risha would not let him cause any trouble here. She quickly used a protective barrier to shield Elsa and the others. Then she launched her own magic. The scared Akira ignored all warnings and threw the fireball in his hand. Seeing Risha in danger, Rupert blocked her. It was just like their previous life. But this time, Risha did not want to lose her brother again. She immediately cast high-level magic, which summoned a fire phoenix to go and attack Akira. Akira fell to the ground in fear, and his followers also scattered and began to flee. The next second, the fire phoenix started to frantically peck him on his head. He was not able to handle the pain. He could only run away in a complete panic. While he was escaping, he discovered that he had wet himself. His reputation was now totally ruined, and there were so many witnesses who were there. This was all because of those siblings. So he pointed at Rupert and cursed. "I'm warning you, don't get too cocky. Even if you defeat me, You're still useless. Rupert dismissed this. Isn't it the same if you ended up losing to my little sister? His comment left Akira completely speechless. Seeing Rupert finally acting with confidence, Risha felt extremely happy for him, so she decided to help him. She went behind him and used the butt slap of encouragement and growth skill. After the skill was used, Rupert started to glow with a strange light. He then immediately unlocked A-level magic power from within him. If he performs well, he can soon upgrade his magic to the S-level, just like in their past life. Now that his magic was awakened, Rupert showed off his very powerful abilities. This scared Akira so much that he fell to the ground. Risha stepped forward to taunt him. Now who's the useless one? It is very hard to say. On this day, the sunstone glowed 2 times, and each time the light was exceptionally brilliant. This was a very rare thing to see, as few people ever awaken their magic power after turning 5. The sunstone's bright light clearly told everyone that Rupert's magic power was extremely powerful. Knowing that Rupert had finally awakened his magic power, his dad was extremely happy and relieved. He had the Chamberlain immediately record Rupert's name in the special sunbook. The Chamberlain looked at the Emperor, who was no longer so cold, with great relief. Since the incident 1 year ago, he had not recovered from his grief. He even neglected his 2 children, allowing them to be bullied all alone in the palace. Luckily, because Rupert had awakened, they now had a reason to suppress the ambitious Blonde family. The Blonde family was the most powerful family in the empire besides the actual royal family. They always wanted the throne, because Rupert was useless, and Risha was a half-wit. They thought the throne was theirs. But they did not expect the siblings to suddenly awaken their magic power one after the other. This made Lady Blonde very anxious. If the royal children were also excellent, how could they take the throne? Just then, her daughter Cecilia came to comfort her mother. Don't worry, I will reclaim everything that belongs to our family. From this moment, the Blonde family started to prepare an even bigger conspiracy. But Risha knew nothing about this. At this moment, in order to grow up much more quickly, she was eating as much as she possibly could. This made the maids very happy. They really enjoyed feeding her. After she finished the last spoonful of her food, the system sent a notification, telling her that the quest was now complete. Risha was finally able to get the growth potion that she had wished for. Also, this potion tasted just like brown sugar bubble tea. How wonderful! While she was happily drinking, Rupert suddenly appeared, which scared her and made her spit out the potion. She thought about how he was always stealing her food in their past life. She immediately had a very bad feeling about this situation. It was just as she had expected. The next second, her brother sat on the ground and began begging her to please let him have a little taste. To keep from getting other people's attention, Risha reluctantly exchanged another bottle of the potion for him. The poor guy really thought that she cherished him a great deal. He had no idea that the one she exchanged for him had the awful flavor of boiled cabbage water. Rupert almost died right there on the spot after he took just 1 sip. Just then, Risha acted cute in front of him on purpose. Brother, you have to drink all of it. Otherwise, I will be mad. To keep his precious sister from getting angry, Rupert could only force himself to chug the entire bottle. After he finished drinking it, he immediately collapsed onto the ground. Risha quietly complained to herself that he was still weak, just like in their past life. But, speaking of that, her brother was supposed to be in his class right now. When she questioned him, Rupert casually replied that he did not have class today. Since they were siblings for over 20 years, Risha knew him well and saw through his lie. But no matter how much she tried to make him leave, even by mentioning their dad, he still would not move. Risha thought the relationship between her dad and brother seemed strange in this life. In the evening, after Rupert returned to his rooms, he immediately began to clean house. He finally kicked out all of the servants who had ignored him for many years. In fact, he had known for a long time these people were spies from the Blonde family. Now he could finally get rid of them. The Chamberlain happened to be there and witnessed this entire scene. He immediately knelt down in front of Rupert in order to apologize. This is all because of my negligence. Please punish me, Your Highness. Rupert generously forgave him and asked why he was there. The Chamberlain took out the legendary Sunbook and showed it to him. This book was like the royal family tree. The names of all royal family members with awakened magic throughout history were recorded inside it. Rupert gently placed his own hand on the book. The Sunbook immediately emitted a brilliant light and in the next second, his name was recorded inside it. The Chamberlain offered his congratulations. Thinking about what happened, he decided to investigate the backgrounds of the palace attendants. He had to stop this from happening again. 2 weeks passed. Since Rupert's name was recorded in the Sun Book, his dad had not visited him once. But even so, Rupert was already very used to this treatment. He only felt sorry for his little sister. If she knew their dad was such a cold-hearted person, how sad would she feel? After all, she liked him so much. But he would never allow anyone to make his little sister feel sad, not even their dad. Through her observations, Risha concluded that Dad and Rupert did not get along well. But this was a really strange thing. This was because in their past life, they had a very good relationship with each other. In their past life, her dad was a devoted father and wanted to be with them 24 hours a day. Now he could go for a long time without seeing them at all. Also, Rupert called his dad Your Majesty, so their relationship was not just a little bad. She was sure that there had to be some kind of misunderstanding. She had to go find her dad and ask him about it very clearly. She suggested going to find their dad together with her brother. But when Rupert heard this, he tried to change the subject. With no other options, Risha used magic to fly out of her crib and then pulled him while constantly pleading. However, he still continued to refuse. Finally, she was forced to use her special trump card. She would go and find their dad all by herself. When her brother tried to stop her, she quickly slapped his hand away from her. She then left without ever looking back at him. He stood there watching her as she departed. After a very intense, internal struggle with himself, Rupert finally stopped her and got ready to go with her. Risha hugged him tightly. She knew her trick would work. She then happily pulled him along to find their dad. When they arrived at their dad's palace, they ran into the Knight Commander. Uncle Gideon in this life was still just like Yasuke from their past life. He greeted them warmly and then asked Rupert if he could please hold Risha, but Rupert firmly refused his request. He was not afraid that he would drop Risha. He was worried that his face, which was full of stubble, would end up hurting her. After hearing this, Uncle Gideon thought that it made perfect sense. He then turned around and lifted Rupert up. "How about this, Your Highness? Isn't the air better up here?" This action left both Rupert and Risha completely speechless. At first, Rupert shyly protested and asked to be put down. However, he soon started to enjoy. Just then, a voice broke the peace. "Why is it so noisy out here?" The next second, their dad appeared at the windowsill with a very grim expression on his face. Risha was startled by his expression and guessed he looked bad because he was very tired from working. So she immediately reached out her arms to ask for a hug, but he only frowned and looked at her without moving. Risha was very confused by his cold behavior towards her. In their past life, he used to treat her with such great tenderness. But her dad ordered them to leave, saying this was not a place for them to be playing around. Uncle Gideon tried to mediate. "Your Majesty, the children came here just to find you. Please do not blame them." But her dad remained unmoved by his words. Rupert seemed to have expected this would happen. He glared at his dad angrily. Risha felt a headache, as the situation was more complicated than she thought. She was sure something happened to her dad. Rupert's cold attitude showed this was not new, and it had to be related to their mom. She could not think of any other reason. As she was thinking, the system pop-up appeared again. This time, the new quest was targeting her dad. It seemed her dad was affected by an incident a year ago, and became the cold, heartless person he was now. Her current quest was to help him resolve his internal conflict and also fix their relationship. But the quest details did not mention any key points, which left Risha clueless about her dad's inner conflict. Also, this annoying system suddenly started showing all of its error messages once again. The huge number of pop-up notifications immediately made her burst into tears. Rupert saw her crying, which made him hate his dad even more than before. "Are you going to hurt even Risha now?" When he saw her crying, her dad did not hesitate to leap down from 100 meters high. He then reached out and gently wiped away her tears. Just as Risha was feeling stunned, Rupert suddenly slapped his hand away from her face. "Your Majesty, please do not touch my sister. It is your fault she is crying. Isn't it too late to care for her now?" At first, Risha thought her brother had gone crazy to speak to their dad in that way. But she noticed that everyone else around them was remaining silent about what was said. She realized right away that something was wrong. It seemed their misunderstanding had become very serious. If she did not explain things clearly, her dad might get known as the bad father, who only makes his daughter cry. So she quickly explained to everyone that her dad did not make her cry, but no one believed her. Her brother even tried to drag her away from the scene. Finally, with no other choice left, Risha could only use her magic to leap directly into her dad's arms. She believed her dad must love them. The gentle aura coming from him would not lie. Just as she wanted to connect with her dad, she was ruthlessly dragged away from him by her older brother. However, she was not going to give up. This time, she had to save her dad. The next day, to resolve her dad's conflict and fix their relationship, Risha went to the garden to find 3-leaf clovers. Then, she used magic to fly to the window and give them to her dad, which startled him. Luckily, her dad treasured the 3-leaf clover she gave him. He even kept them safe inside of a special teacup. This act moved the Chamberlain to tears. He thought that perhaps Princess Risha could melt the Emperor's heart that was frozen for so long. Besides visiting her dad every day to make her presence known, Risha's task was to eat well and grow up fast. On this day, she suddenly noticed that something was very wrong. There was no sign of her very clingy brother at the dining table. After all, he usually would not give up a single second of being with her. So, she carefully asked Elsa if she knew where Rupert was. Elsa thought he was just delayed and paid no attention, but Risha knew her brother would have told her in advance if he had something to do. Was it possible that Rupert was still holding a grudge because she had insisted on staying with their dad? But he should not be that petty, should he? Even though Risha said she was not worried, she still went to find her dad to ask where Rupert was. But she had to wait for her dad for so long that she fell asleep. When she woke up from her sleep feeling very drowsy, she saw her dad's handsome face was right there in front of her. This made her sit up right away and ask him for a hug. But her dad just froze in place and did not take any action. The Chamberlain thought that he was probably just too tired. He then advised him that he should get some rest first. Her dad refused his suggestion and began taking care of Risha. The Chamberlain asked why Risha had come there. Only then did she remember the important reason and asked if he had seen her brother. When she saw the Chamberlain had not seen Rupert today either, she started to become very anxious. Suddenly, she happened to glimpse the 3-leaf clover that was being kept in the teacup. She realized her dad had not thrown it away. This was a very good sign. She quickly thought of a good idea. She suggested to her dad that Rupert might be sick. Just as she expected, his expression finally showed a little bit of emotion. At the same time, the Chamberlain also mentioned that he did not know Rupert's current condition. Now her dad was angry. Isn't it your job to know what's going on in the palace? How could you not know this? The Chamberlain dropped to his knees in apology. The fault is mine, Your Majesty. I deserve to be punished. There was an issue in the prince's palace, so I punished the servants and had them replaced. However, His Highness has been turning away all of the new servants sent to him. As the Chamberlain was speaking, he received Risha's anticipated gaze. He understood her meaning and reminded the Emperor it might be better to check on the prince's palace himself. Risha also used this chance to persuade her dad that they should go together. However, the next second, her dad suddenly stood up from his seat. He then threw her on the table and ran away in a panic. This made Risha furious. She shouted she would never play with him again. Finally, she made the decision to go and find Rupert all by herself. What she did not know was that her dad had been secretly watching her from the shadows. He was not doing much better himself at this moment. In order to avoid Risha, he went to the one place that he least wanted to be. He pulled down the cloth that was covering the portrait, which revealed a painting of him and his wife. Those had been his happiest times. But since that incident a year ago, everything had changed. He had lost his beloved wife. Since that day, he had been living in atonement, and he grew more distant from his own children. But now that his son was in such a state, he realized that he could not just stand by. Without any hesitation, he ordered the Chamberlain to begin a very thorough investigation of the matter. Meanwhile, Risha was carrying a basket full of food to go and find Rupert. But she found that this place was very frightening. It did not look like anyone was living here. But to find Rupert, Risha prepared herself, and then she went inside the palace. After she entered, she snapped her fingers and used light magic to illuminate the dark palace. The silent palace made her feel concerned. She worried if her brother was eating and sleeping well these days. She thought to herself that after she found him, she would just have him move in to live with her. Their group searched through the dining room, the study, and the bathroom, but they did not find anything. Risha also saw that dust was everywhere in this place, and the management was poor. She thought indignantly that her brother was a prince. She became so angry that she started to shout very loudly. And because of her shouting, she finally got a response from her brother. Risha angrily flew up to him and questioned why he took so long to give her a response. But Rupert noticed her dirty little hands instead. He thought the maids were mistreating her. Risha pulled her hand back to explain. That's not it. The maids are all very good to me. Only after he heard this did Rupert finally feel relieved. Then he took her small hand, and he began to wipe it clean with his own sleeve. Meanwhile, Risha took out the 3-leaf clover that she had prepared in advance. This is my gift for you, brother. Hearing this, Rupert took out his handkerchief to wrap it carefully. Did you end up getting your hands dirty while you were picking this for me? Thank you, little sister. This is the second most important treasure in my life. I will cherish it forever. Seeing his joyful face, she felt very gratified. The meaning of 3-leaf clovers is happiness. She hoped it could bring him happiness. But why is it only the second most important? She asked, confused. Rupert smiled and said she was his most important treasure. But Risha saw something was off with his smile. Then why haven't you come to see me these last few days? Rupert originally wanted to change the subject to other topics. However, she directly bit down hard on his hand, so he could only use the excuse that he wanted to practice his magic power alone. Risha became even angrier when she heard this, because she could tell that he was not telling the truth. Finally, after she questioned him over and over again, Rupert finally admitted he was angry because she had insisted on clinging to their dad that day. But since she gave him the 3-leaf clovers, he had already forgiven her. Now, at this moment, he happened to notice the sandwiches that were in her basket. The maids rushed upstairs, chattering and telling him that Princess Risha had made those sandwiches with her own hands. Although Rupert wanted to eat them, he had just finished eating and could not eat anymore. Finally, after Risha pleaded with him over and over, he reluctantly agreed that he would try one of them. However, just one bite made his face look very bad. The maids thought that he was choking and quickly handed him some water. Only Risha could sense the aura around him was wrong. The next second, Rupert pushed Elsa's hand away and told them to stay away. He then collapsed to the ground because of his exhaustion. The maids wanted to call for a doctor right away, but Rupert kept begging them not to come any closer and to take Risha away from there quickly. At this moment, Elsa suddenly realizes he might be about to have a magic rampage. Risha thought the same thing as Elsa. She broke free from the maid's embrace and then cast a protective barrier around the three of them. Then she flew towards Rupert. When she got to him, Rupert used his weak voice to tell her to run away. This showed that he still had his consciousness, which was a good sign. If he lost consciousness, things would get worse. She then noticed something floating in his aura that looked like ice magic. This meant 2 opposing magic circuits were inside him, which was why he never awakened his magic. Her using her skills to help him awaken one type of magic had instead become his death sentence. As she saw him curled up on the ground in pain, Risha became extremely anxious. Just then, the system quest triggered again. It required her to help calm Rupert's rampage to keep him safe. Although Risha thought it was strange that the system quests were all about her and her family, she could not think about it now. She accepted the quest in front of her without any hesitation. This was because she could not stand to lose her brother again. Then she used the butt slap of encouragement and growth skill on Rupert, successfully releasing another magic circuit. So even though he had both flame magic and ice magic, he would not need to worry about a magic rampage. Just when she thought that everything was finally over, the system began to report errors again, and this time, it looked like it had been invaded by someone. The 2 types of magic power inside Rupert suddenly started to rampage at the exact same time. The entire situation became very critical, all at once. Risha could only try to suppress his rampage by using her own magic power. At the same time, a large thunderbolt suddenly struck down. A noble lady gave birth to a child with black hair. When she saw her appearance, the lady was very disappointed. A child like that could not be a tool for her own profit, and would instead become an obstacle. Once Archduke Bilin discovered her, he would cut off all of his support for her. However, this child could still have some value, especially since she had just received news about the prince and princess having an accident. Just as she was thinking about this, the baby in the crib suddenly opened its eyes. Her blood-red pupils were gleaming with very tiny red lights. This startled the lady. She even began to suspect that the child she had was not actually human. On the other side, Risha was still struggling to suppress the rampaging magic inside of Rupert. Soon after, she received a new warning from the system, because she used her magic to its absolute limit. Many organs in her body are now experiencing various levels of damage, but Risha ignores these warnings and keeps helping her brother Rupert, who, after regaining some consciousness, tries to make her release him. However, he is unaware that at this moment, Risha absolutely does not dare to release her grip on him, because if she released him now, the rampaging magic power would surely tear him completely to pieces. She struggles with great effort to hold on to her final bit of willpower. In the end, she was successful in calming Rupert's magical rampage, but as a result, she is about to enter a magic rampage herself. Luckily, her dad arrives just in time. While working in his office, he felt strange fluctuations in magic power. Through his efforts, Risha's magical power is finally controlled, and then she falls into a deep coma. Her mind travels to a different spiritual space. Several days later, noble ladies meet at Archduke Valence's home for afternoon tea. They believe that Prince Rupert and Princess Risha are about to become useless once again. They all change their allegiance again, and began to flatter Archduchess Blonde. Even though Archduchess Blonde looks down on people who switch sides so easily, she still found it enjoyable to listen to all of their compliments. Most importantly, the current circumstances have once again become beneficial for their family. This could be seen as a way to wash away their past humiliation. At the same time, inside the palace, Risha has had a high fever for 3 straight days since she fell into a coma. The maids are frantically worried, and Rupert has stayed watchfully by her side for 3 days, without any food or drink. To convince Rupert to take care of himself, the maids have to use Risha to persuade him. "Your Highness, you must eat something. If you don't, Her Highness will surely blame us when she awakens." After hearing the maid say this, Rupert finally agreed to eat a little food. He truly hopes his younger sister awakens very soon. He promises to never make her angry again. But he did not eat very much, and quickly lost his appetite again. He then stumbled over to her bedside, seeing her small face flushed red from the fever. His heart was aching terribly for her, thinking of his dad who had not appeared even once in the last few days. Rupert's anger toward him grew stronger, but he knew that this was not the right time to blame his dad. He just hoped his sister would recover soon. However, there was one thing that he found to be very strange. Who was the person that saved them that day? Logically, if a normal person had carelessly tried to save them, they would have been pulled into the magic storm. As he thought about this, he turned back to ask Elsa for some more details about it, but he suddenly staggered, and just as he was about to fall, a pair of large hands firmly caught him. It was his dad who had arrived at the perfect moment. Dad carried the unconscious Rupert over and laid him beside Risha. After he touched Rupert's forehead and confirmed that his magic power was now stable, only then did he let out a sigh of relief. He then looked at his daughter next to him with a complicated expression. On that day, he had sensed the unusual fluctuations of magic power, so he immediately jumped down directly from his office window and ran with great urgency toward Rupert's palace. When he arrived at the location, he found Risha, who was on the verge of a magical rampage. So he quickly used his own strong magic power to suppress it. Fortunately, his magic was powerful enough, and Risha slowly calmed down while in his arms. After the situation was calm, he ordered the maids who were there not to tell Risha and Rupert that he was present. Luckily, the maids were all chosen by the Empress herself long ago, so they are all very loyal and dedicated. This is the reason he feels at ease, leaving Rupert and Risha to be cared for by them. As long as they are able to get proper rest, they should slowly recover from their ordeal. It is just that he had not expected Risha's condition to be so serious. Even with nightly magic treatments, it did not seem to help her much. He softly holds her small hand in his, praying that she will be able to recover very quickly. And at the same time, Risha, within the space of her consciousness, is also fighting hard against her sickness. Even though she had forgotten what her dad and Rupert looked like, and had also forgotten who she was, she still had not given up on the fight to save herself. At last, on the afternoon of the next day, Risha carefully and slowly opened up her eyes. Although she was still a little bit confused right after she woke up, she soon remembered her own name, and also remembered Rupert's dangerous magic rampage. As she urgently stood up to go and find Rupert, she unexpectedly slipped and lost her balance, and fell directly back onto the bed. It was only then that she noticed her brother was lying next to her. Seeing he was safe, Risha could not stop the tears of excitement. Thank goodness he was all right. To celebrate their narrow escape from this dangerous incident, Risha made the decision to host a family dinner. The deputy head maid, Lady Daphnis, had the same idea, but her goal was to gain favor with the emperor, so she had specially acquired many valuable ingredients, hoping she could show off her cooking skills. But when she opened the kitchen door, she was totally shocked because the chefs were already preparing food in an organized way, and Risha was supervising with Elsa. Thinking about the family dinner that was about to happen, Risha was feeling very happy about it, although it would have been more perfect if her mom was also there. Given the current circumstances, she didn't dare ask for more. She must cherish this present moment. Just as she and Elsa were busy encouraging the chefs, Lady Daphnes's displeased voice could be heard. "What are you all doing in here?" Risha glared at her fiercely after hearing her words, while Elsa quickly bowed and explained to her they were preparing for the family's dinner. Lady Daphnes began to lecture Elsa. After hearing the news, "How ridiculous! Her Highness just recovered from a serious injury. How can she do this? Don't you understand priorities?" Elsa tried to apologize, but Risha quickly stepped in front of her to stop it. "I have already recovered from my illness, so there is no issue with preparing these things." Lady Daphnes first cursed at her under her breath, then cruelly began to mock Her Highness. "I was worried you would never wake up, but seeing you so full of energy now really calms my mind." At first, Risha did not understand her hidden meaning, until her next words made Risha realize something was wrong. "But you have only just recovered, so it would be better not to cause His Majesty any worry." At this point, Risha understood she was intentionally causing trouble and stated that she absolutely would not leave the kitchen. So Lady Daphnes changed her target and focused on Elsa. "Elsa, how have you disciplined Her Highness? You must hurry and take her back to her room." Risha became very angry when she heard this. "Don't you dare bully Elsa. If you have a problem, you should bring it to me. Leave innocent people out of it." Lady Daphnes immediately became the center of attention in the whole kitchen. Because she cared about her reputation, she had no other choice but to reluctantly apologize to Risha and leave. On the other side of the palace, Dad received the invitation to the dinner. But he still felt that he was not worthy to face his children, so he did not want to go, but he did not expect that Risha would directly rush in at the next moment, and she jumped toward his face, grabbing onto his hair. It turns out she had already expected Dad would do this, so she had positioned herself at the door ahead of time. Because of her emotional appeal and efforts, and with the Chamberlain's help as well, he finally gave in and agreed. When they got to the dining room, Rupert excitedly waved to them. "Little sister, thank you for inviting me. Let's eat together." But when he could see clearly that she had arrived with their dad, his happy expression immediately disappeared from his face. The atmosphere in the room suddenly became very tense. "Your Majesty, it seems you finally found the time. You have ignored me and my little sister. Was it because I awakened my magic? Are you now just pretending to care?" As Rupert's words went too far, Risha quickly tried to stop him. "Don't speak about Dad that way, brother. If you continue this, I will become very angry with you." But Rupert seriously said her name, "Risha. You do not know anything about this. I hate you." After he said that, Rupert pulled his hand away from hers, ran to the window, and jumped straight out. Watching his departing figure, Risha was still very confused about it. She still could not understand what had actually happened between her dad and Rupert to cause this, and it was very clear that neither of them wanted to tell her. As expected, the next moment, Dad also made up an excuse to leave the room. It did not matter how much she tried to make him stay, it was no use. He only left her with an "I'm sorry" before he quickly left. After both of them had gone, Risha was still very troubled by the events of the day. In her previous life, her family had been very happy and harmonious. How did things end up like this in this new life? She wanted to know what really happened between Dad and Rupert. Thinking about this, she opened the system pop-up window, hoping she might see some useful quest notifications there. But at a time like this, she had no quests, and after a few clicks, the system began to report errors again. She really could not tolerate this terrible system any longer. Perhaps it was time for her to just give up. Just as she was thinking this, the system unexpectedly prompted her to confirm her skills tree. Risha immediately and eagerly opened it up to check. She was surprised to discover that she had gained an A- class skill that allowed her to read other people's memories. While she knows it is wrong to peek into others' memories, right now this is the only way to solve the problem. So she immediately called for Elsa to go and find Rupert with her. At that time, Rupert was feeling very sad. As soon as he heard that she was coming, he quickly began to apologize to her. "I am so sorry, little sister. You worked so hard preparing our food and I completely ruined it. Risha told him that she did not mind and asked the maids to leave for a moment. Then she seriously asked him what happened between him and Dad. Just as she had expected, Rupert still refused to tell her the truth, just as he always did. Since that was the situation, she could only use her new skill. Although she felt a little sorry for Rupert, this was for the harmony of their family after all. In the next moment, Risha closed one of her eyes and looked at him with her other eye. Soon the skill activated, and she entered his consciousness, which was darker than she imagined. Suddenly, she heard a voice that was very familiar. It turned out to be from when she was still inside her mom's womb. Finally seeing her mom, Risha began to shed tears of great excitement. But at this moment, that was not the point. The point was to find the reason for Dad and Rupert's disagreement. Suddenly, she could hear her dad and mom arguing with each other again. Her mom was scolding her dad, asking why he had betrayed her while she was pregnant with their child. Her dad did not offer an explanation, and only continued to apologize to her. In the end, their argument had even escalated to the point where they discussed divorce. And all of this had been secretly overheard by Rupert, who was just outside the door. As Risha sees this, her consciousness is pulled back to the real world by her brother. "Little sister, are you okay? You suddenly zoned out and weren't responding to me. You scared me." Remembering the shocking news she had just discovered, she quickly broke free from her brother and hurriedly said goodbye. From the memory, it seems that Dad has another woman. What is actually going on here? As she thought about this, she began to feel dizzy. Luckily, Rupert caught her in time to prevent her fall. "Little sister, are you okay? Did His Majesty say anything to you after I left?" Risha immediately smoothed things over. "Nothing like that happened. I am just feeling a little bit tired right now." Rupert became very nervous after hearing her say that. "That is right. You have only just recovered from your illness. If you are having any trouble, you must tell me right away, because you are my most precious little sister." Risha continued to agree with everything that he said. Although she said this, she knew her brother would definitely not tell her the details about their dad's scandal, so she could only find Dad herself and use her memory reading skill to investigate the matter thoroughly. But when she tried to use the skill on her dad, she was told that there was a skill error. After several errors happened in a row, just as she began to suspect the terrible system was malfunctioning again, the system showed another window. It displayed her dad's inner thoughts. He was thinking about how cute she is. So it appears her skill cannot see his deeper memories, but it can hear his inner thoughts. Just from hearing his inner voice, she was able to confirm that her dad still loved her and her brother. So she immediately began to act cute toward him, and she actively climbed up into his embrace. Seeing her adorable appearance, Dad couldn't help but pat her head. Feeling his gentleness, Risha believed that Rupert must have misunderstood their dad. After all, he loved them so much that he could not possibly do something like that. Then, she looked up at her dad very seriously. "Dad, I know it was you who saved me and my brother because you love us so much." Dad was shocked to hear this, not expecting her to say such a thing. His earlobes could not help but turn a shade of red. Risha remembered. Her mom had once told her that whenever Dad gets shy, his earlobes would always turn red. So what she had guessed must be absolutely correct. But Dad seemed to have some unspoken problem, because he quietly murmured that he has no right to love them. Just as she was feeling confused, Uncle Gideon suddenly came in to report. Seeing that she was also there, he became very excited, and he wanted to rush over to give her a hug. But Risha was very annoyed that he had interrupted their important conversation, so she did not want to get close to him in any way. This instantly made Uncle Gideon very sad. He had even shaved his beard for her. His constant pestering also made Dad very unhappy. "You cannot force this issue on the princess. It is very obvious that you wanted to shave your own beard." Faced with their united rejection of him, Uncle Gideon began to wail loudly on the spot. Risha was completely speechless at his overly dramatic acting. She just continued to act cute toward her dad, but he looked sad. He confessed that he is a sinner. He said it was his fault that they lost their mom when they were at such a young age, so he has always felt that a person like him has absolutely no right to be close to them. Risha began to cry after she heard his inner voice. "So that is why you have always treated us like that. That's so awful. You know perfectly well that you don't actually hate us." Seeing her crying harder and harder, he quickly picked her up from the ground to comfort her, but her tears would not stop falling. "Actually, I really do like playing with you, Dad. but I truly hate it when you pretend that you dislike us. In reality, she was very happy that she was reunited with her dad once again. In her past life, her dad's death was a huge and terrible blow to their entire family. They had to force themselves to endure their grief and hold a funeral for him without a body. So when they were finally reunited in this life, she was incredibly excited about it. But her dad had been so cold toward her the entire time. It had really hurt her feelings. Dad quickly pulled her into his arms, but he did not know the right way to comfort her. Her crying made his own eyes wet with tears. He could only say, "I'm sorry" to her over and over. At that moment, the system made its long-awaited notification. Target: Dad. Quest completed. Related quest: Hope you get to know each other better, is about to begin. On the other side of the palace, after she learned about their argument, Lady Daphnis quickly came to find Rupert in order to cause more trouble between them. Now was the perfect chance for her to make them have a falling out, completely. When she got to the door, she heard Rupert telling the Deputy Chamberlain to leave, even though he kept saying he was sent by His Majesty to protect him. But Rupert would not believe him, because all the years of his dad's coldness, plus the incident with his mom, had made him give up on his dad long ago. Now, he just wanted the Deputy Chamberlain to leave the room quickly. Lady Daphnis found this very funny as she listened in. She knew His Majesty sending the Deputy Chamberlain was acknowledging Rupert as the heir. She didn't expect the foolish boy to try to send him away. This situation was much too favorable for her plans. So she pushed open the door and told the Deputy Chamberlain that he should leave. Isn't it the duty for a servant to obey any command from the imperial family? Rupert also quickly saw the dress she was wearing that had originally belonged to his mom. In the next moment, magical power began to gather all around him. Then he angrily questioned Lady Daphnis about why she was wearing his mom's dress. He told Lady Daphnis to think carefully before she spoke, or he did not know how he would deal with her, a thief who had stolen his mom's belongings. Lady Daphnis turned pale with fear at this and quickly knelt to beg for mercy. "I am innocent, Your Highness. This was given to me by the Empress. She gave it as a parting gift." After he received her answer, Rupert calmed himself down and then told both of them to get out. But unexpectedly, Lady Daphnis refused to leave the room. She still believed that Rupert was an easy child to fool. "Your Highness, the Empress sincerely begged me to take good care of you." Rupert was stunned when he heard this. "Just me and not Risha?" Lady Daphnis was delighted he took the bait. "Of course, the Empress only loved you, Your Highness. From this point on, I will take her place to care for you. I will do a better job than His Majesty." As soon as she had finished speaking, Rupert pushed her away from him. "You are a liar. How dare you say that Mom did not love Risha? How could you lie about my mom? I do not need anyone else to take care of me. All I need is Risha." But just as he finished speaking, he saw Risha standing at the door, watching him with a hidden smile on her face. Rupert suddenly began to blush. Before Risha was able to react, he jumped out from the window to escape again. Risha complained that the fool was using that move again. As soon as Rupert left, Lady Daphnis, on the floor, began to wail, and even though she was 5 meters away just now, she had now moved to Dad's feet. "Your Majesty, although His Highness yelled at me, I am all right." Risha could not help but smack her lips. Seeing her dramatic behavior was just from being pushed by a 7-year-old child. How serious could that possibly be? But after hearing her smack her lips, the maid suddenly became excited. "My goodness! Your Highness, you clicked your tongue. How cute!" Risha felt embarrassed and shy from their praise, hoping she could grow up faster. But when facing someone like Lady Daphnis, ignoring her is much better than scolding her. So she just started talking with her dad. "Dad?" Rupert seemed very embarrassed just now. Dad expressed his feeling of helplessness after hearing this. "Rather than that, I believe your brother probably ran away because he hates me. I must find another chance to slowly open up to him later." Risha became very anxious when she heard this, thinking, "But I hope Dad and my brother can get along well." Seeing her hopeful face, Dad immediately picked her up and jumped down from the windowsill, which badly scared the maids. They chased after them in a panic, and the guards left behind efficiently handled Lady Daphnis. Lady Daphnis was completely speechless, unable to figure out which step of her careful plan had gone wrong. On the other side, after jumping out the window, Risha and Dad caught up with Rupert. Although Rupert struggled to escape, he was still forcibly brought to a room. As soon as he was put down, he tried to run, but he was blocked by the magic barrier that they had already set up in the room. Risha said that they had some important things that they wanted to clarify with him, but he did not want to listen. Having no other choice, Risha could only use her old trick. "Brother, do you want to run away because you don't love me anymore?" Rupert quickly waved his hands when he heard this. "How could I possibly not love you?" Hearing this, she happily took his hand in hers. "Then will you still try to run away, brother?" After he promised many times not to run away again, Risha showed a clever smile. Now their plan could finally proceed smoothly. So next they brought out various pastries and started their family's first afternoon tea. But both Dad and her brother had serious expressions and did not say a word. It made her feel quite depressed, so she opened the system in order to check their likability ratings. She did not know what to expect, but when she finally looked, she was completely shocked. Both of them had already reached the maximum level of likability toward her. Seeing just how much they both cared about her made her face turn red with embarrassment, but at this moment, their likability toward her was not important. What mattered was their likability toward each other. So she secretly investigated the matter, and she discovered that her dad's likability toward Rupert was also at the maximum level. But Rupert's likability toward his dad was only a small amount, so Dad needed to work much harder. "Dad, don't you have something to say to my brother?" To her surprise, Dad wanted to run away again, saying, "I want to talk with him, but I still feel I'm not qualified." Risha immediately cupped his face when she heard this. "You do not need to think about it so much. Just say it directly to him." And this sentence was exactly what her dad from her past life had told her. In her previous life, when she fought with friends, he would always patiently advise her, "Fiona, if you don't say it out loud, you can't express your feelings. Even if you feel sorry, you must say it properly. Otherwise, the disagreement will never be fixed." Thinking of this, Risha patted her dad's shoulder. "Go on, Dad. I truly believe that you can do it." So with her encouragement, he finally and bravely went to stand in front of Rupert. Then he gently patted his hand. "I am sorry, Rupert, whether it is about your mom's matter, or for neglecting you and your little sister when you were young. I am truly so very sorry." Hearing the sincere apology from his dad, Rupert immediately burst into tears. Dad reached up to gently wipe away his tears. "The reason I kept my distance from you was because I believed I had no right to love you, but your little sister said I was wrong." Hearing these words, Rupert choked up as he spoke. "So you want me to forgive you for all of that?" But his dad just shook his head. "I do not dare to hope that you will forgive me. I only just wanted to say sorry to you." Rupert hugged him tightly and cried very loudly, "You bastard! Do you have any idea how long I have been waiting?" Risha also immediately became teary-eyed when she saw them both crying. Then she eagerly rushed toward them. In this life, she must protect her family. Since successfully reconciling her dad and brother, Risha has been smiling with happiness every day. This very happy atmosphere has also unknowingly spread to the maids, until today, when she finally received the system's quest completion notification. "May you be able to keep your important promise." Risha found this very human-like tone a bit confusing. She noticed this was not the first time the system used this tone. In her past life, when she was dying, the system asked if she didn't like it, but strangely, she doesn't remember saying that to the system. Logically, the system should not have any emotions. She wondered if it had changed after her reincarnation. Thinking about it in this life, it has consistently given her helpful quests to help her grow. Just as she wanted to investigate it more, the system began to report errors once again, so she could only give up. Regardless of whether the other party is a friend or an enemy, she will not allow it to harm her family again. At this time, Dad and Rupert came to visit her. Ever since that day, the two of them had become much closer. As she thought of the quest, Risha suddenly realized that she seemed to have forgotten something very important. She remembered it. She still had not yet received her quest completion reward for finishing the quest. While Dad and Rupert were unaware of her thoughts, Rupert was fantasizing about pinching her cheeks, which were as soft as cotton candy. If Dad had not stopped him, he likely would have done it. The result is a world where only Risha gets hurt. Never did she expect the system would ignore her promised rewards. At the same time, in the Nazca Principality, a black-haired young boy wearing gorgeous clothes is lying on a magic altar. An elderly man next to him calls out with tears in his eyes, "Your Highness." And then, the young man slowly opens his golden eyes, quietly murmuring, "May you?" Then he closed his eyes again. Soon, 2 years passed. During those 2 years, Dad and Rupert spent a lot of time with Risha. They had even specially made her a set of magic fairy costumes to wear. Although as someone who is mentally an adult, this was indeed a little childish for her. But this pink and cute outfit was irresistible, so she changed into the clothes and performed, making her dad and brother be defeated by her cuteness. Not only that, but Rupert was also very enthusiastic about finding many different and fun toys for her. On this day, he brought another dollhouse because he thought the princess doll inside of it really looked like her, so he eagerly brought it over to show it to her. And after she saw the dollhouse, Risha casually complimented it, saying it was very cute. And then there was no follow-up. This immediately made Rupert feel extremely nervous. He was afraid that she did not like it. Seeing how nervous he was, Risha immediately took out the dolls and invited him to play. She chose the princess and the demon king dolls, while Rupert chose the prince doll to play with. Noticing they were having so much fun together, Elsa was also very pleased. At this moment, a maid quietly called for Elsa at the door. It immediately made Risha alert. She was very curious what they wanted to whisper about, so she stopped her actions and began to eavesdrop. On the other side, after calling Elsa out, the maid told her about the rumors that had recently been spreading, that someone was saying Prince Rupert lost his magic power after the magic rampage, and Princess Risha had returned to being a half-wit because of it. And the person spreading the rumors also said that His Majesty decided to abandon them after he learned about this, and would instead adopt the children of Archduchess Blonde. Risha immediately clenched her fists after she heard this. How dare they do that? But then she thought it might be because their family had not appeared in public for a very long time. Since resolving their misunderstanding, they cherished their time together more, but it became the reason for ill-intentioned people to distort the facts. At this moment, Rupert, who had also been eavesdropping, quietly asked her what they should do about this next. Risha made a gesture that showed they should, of course, fight back hard. Otherwise, they would think their family is easy to bully. So on the next day, their dad hosted a banquet and invited all of the nobles to attend it. Everyone, seeing the long-absent Archduchess Blonde, hurried to flatter her. Your Grace, it's been so long since we saw you in the palace. Lady Cecilia and Lord Akira, it is nice to meet you. Look how healthy and wonderful you are. You two are truly the future of the empire. Archduchess Blonde felt happy hearing these flattering words. That's right, my children are the most suitable heirs. Unlike those two useless siblings, who are pitiful idiots that don't even have any magic power. Then, after she gave Marchioness Roger a look, she brought her children into the main hall. At this time, the hall was already full of people. Since this was the first large banquet the Emperor held in 2 years, everyone had come this time to watch all of the drama unfold. They all wanted to know if the Emperor would really make Archduchess Blonde's children the new heirs. Just as they were all discussing this among themselves, the Emperor entered with Risha and Rupert. Everyone was very shocked to see that Rupert was safe and sound. Because, logically, a person who experienced a magic rampage should have no possible way to ever recover. Rupert noticed Akira in the crowd of people and quietly mouthed the words "banana head" to him. This made Akira furious, and at this time, the girl in the Emperor's arms also attracted the attention of all the guests. At first sight of her angelic and adorable face, they found it very hard to believe that she could be a half-wit. Also, Prince Rupert did not look like he had lost his magic power. Seeing His Majesty's important attitude toward them, it didn't seem like the rumors he had given up on the prince and princess were true. Although Archduchess Blonde was now a bit flustered, she still strongly believed that Risha had returned to being a half-wit, and that the Emperor, who loves his children so much, would surely accept her own children as his. So she once again gave a meaningful look over to Marchioness Roger. Then Marchioness Roger directly went up to the Emperor. Your Majesty, as a subject of this empire, I would like to say a word. Please adopt Lady Cecilia and Lord Akira of the Archduke Billen family as your children, and acknowledge them as heirs to the throne. Only this way will the people feel at ease. Risha, hiding under her dad's cloak, showed a cunning smile. After hearing these words, everything was going exactly as she had predicted. The words started heated discussions around them, though everyone knew this fact was undeniable. Saying it so brutally in front of Prince Rupert and Princess Risha crossed every line of decency. Meanwhile, Risha, hidden under the cloak, was pleased to see this happen, because it meant that foolish Archduchess Blonde had taken the bait. Next, she would make them all pay. But she did not expect that her dad would suddenly go off script. At this moment, he directly questioned Marchioness Roger with a gloomy face. I don't understand what you're saying. Prince Rupert and Princess Risha made the sunstone shine. How can they be unqualified as heirs? As soon as he finished his words, everyone present felt an unexplainable pressure. Captain, Gideon silently watched those being punished, feeling speechless. These people had lived too comfortably, and had forgotten the bloody battles the Emperor went through to take the throne. He not only eliminated 5 competitors by himself in the succession fight, but he also personally beheaded his stepbrothers who tried to rebel. Although he had restrained himself a lot after he met the Empress, and he had lost his will to live after she was gone, he is still, at his core, that terrifying man of killing who puts fear into the hearts of people. So these people, who dared to provoke him, were simply asking for their own deaths. Risha also realized that her dad's emotions were getting a little bit out of his control. She immediately grabbed his clothes tightly to get him to stop. Seeing the Emperor regain his composure, Archduchess Blonde, trembling, came out to smooth things over. Your Majesty, how can you pressure a loyal subject who dared to offer advice so frankly? Take her to the Imperial doctor at once. Upon hearing this, the maids scrambled to take Marchioness Roger away. After the diagnosis, Marchioness Roger had suffered great psychological trauma and would need to rest for several months, which made Risha very annoyed. If her dad had not lost his composure, she could have used this chance to teach the Blonde family a lesson. Noticing her cheeks puffed out in anger, Dad quickly apologized. I am sorry, Risha. I was not trying to get in your way. Seeing the Emperor so humbly coaxing Risha, Akira could not hold back anymore. Why can that reject be a prince when I can't? Your Majesty, weren't you going to make me your heir? Archduchess Blonde felt something was wrong seeing Akira like this. I am sorry, Your Majesty. Akira is just an immature child. Please forgive his remarks. But when Akira heard her say this, he became even more upset. I'm not immature. You are the one who told me so, Mother. You said I would become the prince. That is what everyone said. Hearing his angry words, Rupert could not help but sneer at him. If the prince were someone like you, even the sun god would sigh. Akira was immediately enraged. Are you scorning me when you are a reject who has lost his magic power? The incident of your magic rampage from 2 years ago has already spread. No royal family member who has triggered a magic rampage has ever recovered their magic power. Archduchess Blonde also helped her son. Yes, everyone knows Prince Rupert triggered a magic rampage and Princess Risha seems to be mentally unclear from a fever. Rupert found their coordinated performance to be quite amusing, setting aside my sister and me for the moment. Even if you really inherit the throne, would the country's future be bright? Akira was left speechless by his response. He immediately wanted to step forward and use his magic to teach Rupert a lesson. But unexpectedly, magic power suddenly appeared in Rupert's hands. After the 2 magic powers collided with each other, obviously Rupert was the superior one between them. He coldly looked at the messy Akira and silently removed his foot from his chest. At this moment, everyone finally realized that Rupert losing his magic power was a lie. After teaching Akira his lesson, Rupert immediately ran over to Risha to claim his credit. How did I do, Risha? But Risha just glared at him fiercely. I wanted to beat up Akira in person. Hearing her accusation, both Dad and Rupert did not get angry, but instead fondly remembered her baby talk. This made Risha even angrier. Their warm interaction was seen by everyone, who all exclaimed that Risha is really so cute. Dad immediately became smug inside. Now you all know how cute my daughter is, while Rupert proudly raised his head. After this whole display, everyone finally knew that all the rumors about the prince and princess were false. The instigator was likely the Blonde family, so Archduchess Blonde's reputation was now completely ruined, while Risha effortlessly brought her down without even lifting a single finger. It's just that the sudden clinginess from her dad and brother made her very uncomfortable. She felt it was really too embarrassing. Ever since seeing Risha dressed up as a magic fairy, her dad seemed possessed, suddenly collecting all kinds of magic wands for her. Risha felt very depressed. She may look like only a child, but deep down inside she was already an adult. So she did not want to accept such childish gifts from him. She did not expect that her dad in this life was still the same as in her previous life. He used to tirelessly play with magic wands with her when she was just a little girl. At this time, Dad and Rupert came to find her, and the system happened to start reporting errors constantly at this moment, which really startled her. Seeing her like this, they immediately rushed to her side, then looked fiercely at the servants. "Who dares to threaten my daughter? If I catch them, I won't go easy on them. Call the Imperial Guards at once." Risha was stunned by their very dramatic response. She quickly grabbed onto both of their clothes. "Dad and brother, I am really fed up with you two. Can you please stop always looking so very fierce?" Watching her cheeks puff out in anger, their hearts suddenly became incredibly soft. They immediately showed weakness and asked for her forgiveness. Then they said they had brought gifts for her. Initially seeing the 3 large gift boxes carried by the servants, she was a bit puzzled. But after she opened them, she felt speechless. They had actually given her a bunch of magic wands once again. She had already said she was not a little kid anymore. Why did they still treat her like a child? This really made her very tired. Who would have ever thought she would achieve magic wand freedom at such a very young age? However, her dad and brother seemed to be very happy, which made her feel bad about refusing the gifts. Suddenly, Risha remembered the system that had been showing errors before. She immediately opened the interface to check it. Fortunately, the system had returned to normal and was about to give her quest completion rewards. It immediately made her beam with joy, and she instantly forgave its constant errors from just now. This reward was very rare since it was a combined reward for 2 quests. It was a skill upgrade pass. So Risha immediately used the upgrade pass on mind reading, and after using it, her mind reading skill upgraded from A class to S class. After leveling up, mind reading gained a bonus effect, with a 10% chance to randomly read other people's thoughts. Risha secretly tested it on the maids, but none of the attempts were successful. This made her angrily punch her pillow, knowing that the terrible system was as useless as it had always been. So she lay back on the bed and started relaxing. Suddenly, she thought of the Demon King from her previous life again. Now that all of her familiar family members had been reunited in this world, could it be possible that other people she knew in her previous life have also been reincarnated here? Could the Demon King have been reincarnated as well? Just as she was completely lost in her thought, Rupert interrupted her. "Risha, are you in a bad mood?" Seeing Rupert come over, Risha decided not to worry about it anymore. At least in this life, all her family, except her mom, are safe. If the Demon King has really reincarnated, she will definitely teach him a very harsh lesson. At this moment, Risha suddenly noticed the 3-leaf clover pin that was on his chest. She did not expect that he would specially preserve it with his magic. Her dad also had the same pin. She was very moved that the clovers she casually picked were treasured by them. On the other side, Archduke Billund was furious about being deceived by Lady Holden. It was because the child that she gave birth to seemed to be an idiot. Lady Holden desperately grabbed his pants and explained that her child was definitely not an idiot. She begged Archduke Billund to look carefully at the child. Archduke Billund glanced at the child and immediately noticed something strange about her. A strange black aura seemed to surround her, and her entire being gave off an indescribable eeriness. This completely confused Archduke Billund. Seeing him like this, Lady Holden begged him not to cut off their living expenses. The black-haired, red-eyed little girl paid no attention to their argument, but frowned as she looked toward the palace. "It seems you have not given up. You should try to be happy while you still can, Fiona." And she stopped speaking because she could not reveal she knew names she shouldn't know. One day Risha was staring out the window, bored, when an orange-haired maid suddenly walked in and introduced herself. "Hello, everyone. I am Melinda Daphnis, and I will be your head maid from now on." Seeing a newcomer, Risha knew that there would be a new quest for her. As she had expected, the next second, a quest pop-up appeared. A sudden quest. "The spy who adores me." Seeing the word spy, Risha immediately became alert. Based on Melinda's surname, she thought of Lady Daphnis, who insisted on disrupting their family's relationships. Therefore, Risha was certain that Melinda was sent by Lady Daphnis. She thought she would restrain herself after the last lesson, but it has not been long before she is up to her tricks again. And she made her own niece the head maid right away, which is the highest position in her palace. Melinda was obviously proud of Lady Daphnis. "You are not going to refuse the order of the deputy head maid of the Empress, are you?" Risha stated that she had enough maids already and did not need any new ones. This immediately moved the maids to tears. Rupert was also excited with sparkling eyes. "Really, Risha, so that is what you think?" However, since she had already received Melinda's official assignment order, She could not just ignore it completely. So Risha immediately blinked at her and then said, "Hello." The next second, all of Melinda's basic information appeared right before her. Additionally, while getting to know Melinda, she accidentally triggered the skill's bonus effect. Then, Melinda's inner voice appeared before her. She was charmed by Risha's cute blinking, but tried hard to control herself from being deceived. Seeing her like this, Rupert looked displeased. "Do you just ignore Risha's greeting? You don't have what it takes to be a maid at the Empress's palace." The maids nearby agreed. "That's right, Your Highness. You're absolutely correct." To remain unmoved by such a very cute greeting shows that she has insufficient qualifications. At the same time, Rupert also suspected Melinda. Could it be you harbor improper thoughts about the princess and deliberately infiltrated this place? Seeing him hit the nail on the head regarding her true feelings, Melinda became so nervous that she did not know what to do. At this moment, Risha suddenly pounced toward her, then grabbed her hand and showed a sweet smile. "Melinda, stay here and play with me from now on." Her cute look immediately captured Melinda, and she completely fell for Risha. Risha showed a cunning smile, thinking that simple girls like Melinda indeed had no talent for being spies. The system soon issued a new quest. As long as she can make Melinda willingly defect, she can get an S-class item. For this item, Risha decides to win over Melinda no matter what. After that, Melinda was assigned to manage the magic wand storage. Initially, she was very resistant to this because, after all, she still needed to complete the task her aunt had assigned her. Lady Daphnis had her infiltrate the princess's palace to send intelligence and find a chance to control the palace. In that case, they would have a chance to rise to a much higher position. By then, she would be the niece of the Empress. But now, she has become a servant who spends all day polishing magic wands. This is really too ridiculous. How is she supposed to explain this to her aunt? Although Melinda thought this way, she quickly adapted to managing the magic wand storage and even enjoyed it. Even in her reports to Lady Daphnis, she expressed how much she really loved this job. This nearly made Lady Daphnis's face twist up with anger. She had originally thought that this foolish niece of hers would be easy to manipulate, but unexpectedly, she had become a source of trouble. Fortunately, Melinda did not know much, so she simply decided to ignore her. It's just that after Rupert eliminated all the spies in the prince's palace last time, the Chamberlain has become extremely strict about selecting servants. At this current rate, it is only a matter of time before she gets pushed out. While the niece she finally managed to place near Princess Risha is so very useless. What should she do in the future? Meanwhile, Rupert carefully inspected the newly delivered magic wands and gave Melinda high praise. Melinda was also relieved that Princess Risha could now safely play with the magic wands. After all, she had polished each of them a total of 33 times. She secretly complained about her aunt's lack of understanding. Honestly, guarding Princess Risha's adorable grin felt like a sacred duty. But her aunt told her not to report such trivial news to her anymore. She wondered if her aunt was still secretly wearing the Empress's clothes. She completely did not understand what her aunt had sent her here to do. All of her thoughts were captured by Risha because the skill's bonus effect had no usage limit. She had already thoroughly understood Melinda during this time, so she completed the quest to win over Melinda in just half a month. Just as she was preparing to receive her quest completion reward, the system popped up a brand new quest. This time, the quest was actually to protect her dad. It turned out that Lady Daphnis, who refused to give up, was starting new schemes to become the Empress. She knew this woman was like an unkillable cockroach. How dare she covet her dad? This time, she must drive her out of the palace and never let her return. The next day, Risha was having afternoon tea with her dad and brother. On the surface, they were chatting over tea together, but in reality, Dad and Rupert were constantly feeding Risha. Here, her dad fed her a bite of dessert, and he did not forget to wipe her mouth. There, Rupert handed her the prepared tea. After she was full and satisfied, she suddenly thought of something and immediately raised her hand to tell her dad. "Oh, Dad, there is something I want to do." Upon hearing this, they immediately told her to speak up. Even if she wanted to pluck stars from the sky, they would do their best to satisfy her. Then Risha suggested that she wanted to go and visit her mom's room. Dad smiled with relief. "I should have taken you to see it long ago, but I never had the right opportunity." The next second, he picked up Risha and extended his hand to Rupert. "Rupert, let's go together." Seeing the three of them being so harmonious together, Elsa's eyes reddened. She had finally waited for this day. For a long time, the Empress had been a forbidden topic in the palace. But Princess Risha changed all that. She sincerely wishes they will become happier and happier. Meanwhile, Lady Daphnis was completely unaware of all this, and was still smugly wearing the Empress's clothes. Yes, this crown suits me much better. I know it's going to work this time. After all, I have already succeeded once, so I will be able to do it again. Last time Archduke Billund gave the opportunity to another woman, and now all of this will become mine. Just as Lady Daphnis was completely lost in her fantasy, the door to the room was suddenly opened, and they appeared before her. Lady Daphnis was shocked to see the Emperor calmly hand Risha from his arms to Elsa. Then he looked at Lady Daphnis with a very gloomy expression. How dare you steal the Empress's clothes? As his words fell, a magic attack grazed past Lady Daphnis and hit the wall behind her. Lady Daphnis was so frightened that she fell to the ground. Then he ordered people to carefully remove the clothes belonging to the Empress from her. He glanced sideways at the maids who were kneeling on the ground, questioning them sternly. So this is why you are trying to stop me from entering? The maids were trembling with fear. Your Majesty, forgive us, we don't know. We just thought Lady Daphnis was organizing the Empress's belongings. Lady Daphnis, about to have her clothes removed, suddenly shouted, How dare you treat your master like this? Hearing this, Dad almost laughed with anger. I did not know when a mere deputy head maid became the master of the Empress's palace. Lady Daphnis panicked and quickly explained, No, Your Majesty, it is just that the Empress gave me all of these things. Rupert was furious about her words. She is too noisy. We should have just killed her then. Then he immediately cast a binding spell on Lady Daphnis to hold her. Now the maids could finally remove the Empress's accessories. Dad reclaimed the crown. This is the crown passed down to each Empress of the royal family. How dare you wear it so casually? And that dress is what the Empress wore at her wedding. You say she gave these to you? Does that make sense? But Lady Daphnis suddenly became emotional. But Your Majesty, the Empress personally entrusted me to take good care of the two children. Now that she is gone, you should make me the Empress. Hearing her shameless words, Risha was almost furious. Her mom was so good to her, yet she always wanted to replace her mom's position. At this moment, a red system pop-up suddenly appeared. You are about to experience side effects from the item, Invisible Eye. The observer can observe any area within 300 meters for up to 5 minutes. However, there might be side effects while using this item, such as dry eyes or eye floaters. In the next second, Risha started crying uncontrollably because of the dry eye side effect. Since there were no eye drops, she could only keep rubbing her eyes. This scene created a huge misunderstanding in the eyes of the others. First, Melinda suddenly felt very guilty. After all, Risha was crying because of her aunt. Then Dad and Rupert rushed to her side to comfort her. Finally, the maids all glared fiercely at Lady Daphnis. Lady Daphnis was startled by their stares. Then Melinda suddenly knelt down with a thud. Your Majesty, please let me accept punishment together with my aunt. For the past 4 years, my aunt has been using the Empress's belongings, and even transferred the Empress's palace budget and valuables to my name. You just need to check the assets under my name. Risha actually already knew all of this. Ever since she could hear Melinda's inner voice, she had the Chamberlain collect evidence. Seeing the Chamberlain promptly present the evidence, Dad was puzzled. Did you know about this all along? The Chamberlain quickly explained. Not at all, Your Majesty. Her Highness caught my attention when she found the deputy head maid's clothing to be too glamorous. So under her orders, I began to investigate and gather evidence. Please forgive me for not noticing this earlier. Hearing this, Melinda was moved to tears. Your Highness, you are so wise. You noticed long ago. You must have been waiting for me to confess on my own, right? I am truly ashamed to face you. The Emperor and Rupert also highly praised Risha's intelligence, which made her feel very proud for quite a while. Then, the Emperor ordered for Lady Daphnis to be dragged out for her execution, and to have all her assets confiscated. This terrified Lady Daphnis, who continuously begged for mercy. Just as Risha thought everything was finally over, the system suddenly sent her a new quest, asking her to save Lady Daphnis. Could this woman be useful later on? While not eliminating the problem is troublesome, it could be problematic if she doesn't follow the system's quest. Noticing her delayed response, The system immediately offered a mid-level mission reward for this unexpected quest. This offer finally made her hesitate. She could only go against her conscience and ask the Emperor not to kill Lady Daphnis. As a doting father, the Emperor naturally could not bear to refuse his daughter's request. Lady Daphnis was very surprised that Risha would suddenly plead for her life, but after thinking about it carefully, she felt that Risha's behavior was actually quite reasonable. After all, Risha was still so young that she must have seen her as a mother figure. But then she saw Risha's cold smile, and she finally realized she had been set up. This angered her so much that she started loudly cursing Risha, calling her a little devil. Hearing her speak badly of his sister, Rupert wanted to kill her immediately, but Risha had pleaded for her. However, the Emperor still decided to teach her a proper lesson. After Lady Daphnis was dragged away, it was time to deal with Melinda. Although she was an accomplice in the plot, she had confessed to her crimes voluntarily and provided key evidence, so Risha decided to grant her a special pardon. But Melinda, you can no longer stay here in the palace. Melinda did not expect Risha to be so kind to her, and she immediately thanked her many times. Then, with firm resolve, she left the palace. The maids saw how kind Risha was and couldn't help but cry, worrying how someone so gentle could endure the harsh world. Risha found this very frustrating and suddenly felt tired. Risha was now almost 7 years old. On this day, she had a dream about her memories of the Demon King. Back then, while he was still in his human form, he had confessed his deep love for her. But when she heard his confession, she grew angry, feeling as if he were giving a final speech. The Demon King was amused and frustrated, so he had to say he would confess to her again after she caught him. He was truly looking forward to their beautiful future together, but he never expected that it would all end in such tragedy. The next second, Risha jolted awake from her dream. Then she received a strange new quest from the system. The condition to complete it was to eliminate the traitor. Could this traitor also be the Demon King? If so, she would never let him get away so easily again. Because she had not slept well, Risha came to the dining table yawning. Since she kept spacing out while she was eating, the Emperor became very worried. But Risha insisted she was fine, so he had to let it go. He then mentioned her 7th birthday, wanting to give her a castle with her name. Rupert wanted to cover the entire castle with gold. Risha internally complained about them making too big of a deal about it. Although they had certainly done similar things before, why did they want to put precious gold all over the castle? She soon understood the real reason for Rupert's generosity. As the Empire's only prince, he not only owned 3 gold mines, but also many silver mines. Additionally, Akira's gold mine was also transferred over to his name, which meant he actually owned 4 gold mines. This immediately excited Risha, especially when the Emperor said she would also own her own gold mine after turning 7, making her even more excited. She wished that she could grow up much faster. Rupert seemed to see right through her thoughts. He said if she gave him a kiss, he would give her a gold mine. Risha was speechless at his childish behavior, but the Emperor also joined in competitively, leaving her dumbfounded by their hopeful looks. Risha resisted the urge to facepalm, but compared to taking things from her family, she much preferred to seize her enemies' possessions, especially those of the Billand family. Just as she was lost in her wonderful fantasies, she was suddenly caught by the Emperor and Rupert in a pincer-kissing attack. She had not expected them to learn sneak attacks. They were truly despicable. Soon after this, the Nazca Principality submitted a formal visit request to the Empire. The Nazca Principality is one of the few families that does not need to rely on sun magic power for survival. They worship black dragons as their ancestors to avoid the sun, eventually evolving into the current Nazca family, with the blood of the Dragon of Darkness. However, since their principality had always been very isolated, the Emperor found their sudden request to visit a little strange, but he thought that they might have encountered some kind of difficulty, so he finally agreed to their request. The next day, the Nazca family arrived, and they were carrying a crystal coffin. Lying inside of the crystal coffin was Mikhail, the only heir to their principality. Everyone was shocked by this sight, not understanding why the heir of a dignified principality was lying inside a crystal coffin. After seeing Mikhail's appearance clearly, Risha's expression suddenly darkened. In her past life, she had been the undisputed strongest S-class hunter. Besides her, 3 others had similar strength: her brother, the Saint, and the Demon King. Now this young man who was lying in the crystal coffin had the exact same appearance as the Demon King. She did not understand what was happening. Was this a reincarnation, or just a coincidence? Suddenly, a hand reached over to touch her forehead. "Little sister, are you not feeling well? You do not seem to have a fever," Rupert asked with concern. The Emperor was also worried. "Risha, you must be in shock." Risha quickly shook her head to show that she was fine. At that moment, the elder from the Nazca Principality had already knelt down with a thud. "Your Majesty, please help us. We ask you to purify the curse that is binding Prince Mikhail." Soon, the news about Mikhail's situation spread throughout the entire empire. Even the noble ladies at their tea parties were discussing this matter. "I heard the heir of the Nazca Principality is cursed. He is surviving in a crystal coffin made of magic stones. This visit is to find a way to purify the curse." Hearing their discussion, Cecilia immediately explained to them, "The magic power that our empire possesses comes directly from the sun. Most people have either flame magic or light magic, while purifying magic is quite rare. Even the emperor, the prince, and the princess do not possess it." Speaking of this, she suddenly told Amanda, who was beside her, to put away the umbrella. Hearing her command, Amanda quickly put away the umbrella, afraid that being even a second late would make Cecilia angry. After all, Cecilia's temper was truly very unpredictable. At the last tea party, just because someone said Princess Risha would one day replace her social position when she grew up, she used her magic to burn that lady's hand and then poured water from a vase all over her, finally forcing that lady to apologize in public. So Amanda did not dare to disobey her commands at all. At this moment, Cecilia suddenly ordered Amanda to lift up her skirt and to show everyone her legs. Initially faced with such a humiliating command, Amanda gripped her skirt and did not move, until Cecilia started to get impatient. She then, trembling with fear, slowly lifted her skirt. The next second, her stone-like legs were displayed before them. Upon seeing her legs, people started pointing and whispering about her. In fact, Amanda was suffering from a petrification curse. Then Cecilia began to cast magic on her legs. Miraculously, the moment the magic was cast, the petrification curse on Amanda's legs began to show signs of fading. This scene immediately excited everyone there. Could it be that Lady Cecilia possessed the legendary and extremely rare purifying magic? It seemed Lady Cecilia was about to become a great noble of the Nazca Principality. Meanwhile, Risha took advantage of no one being around and snuck to where the crystal coffin was stored. Looking at Mikhail, who was sleeping quietly in the crystal coffin, she complained that he was not some sleeping beauty, but speaking of which, she had heard that he was the descendant of the arrogant dragon of darkness. How fitting! Even in his previous life, he had a dragon that served him as a servant. He truly has an inseparable connection with dragons. Then Risha used her skill on him once more. However, the system could only identify his name, while all of the other information was showing up as errors. But this one piece of information was enough for her to confirm that he was the Demon King's reincarnation. She leaned over the crystal coffin to carefully examine his face one more time, once more, murmuring that she did not want to repeat her past mistakes. Then she prepared to complete the quest to eliminate the traitor. The next second, an ice blade condensed in her hand, and she gripped it very tightly, ready to stab it toward Mikhail. Obviously, killing him while he was powerless would be very easy. In her past life, it was because she did not hesitate to slay the Demon King that she had earned this chance to reunite with her beloved family in this life. Now she just needed to kill him again to ensure a peaceful life in this world. But at the moment she was about to strike, she hesitated, because she could no longer bring herself to attack him with decisiveness. Unable to accept this new reality, Risha fled from the scene in a panic. Right after she had left, Mikhail, who was in the crystal coffin, slowly opened his golden eyes. He stared blankly at Risha's retreating figure for a moment, then closed his eyes in pain and murmured, "Fiona, why?" Because she had failed to eliminate the Demon King, Risha suffered from insomnia that night. So when she appeared at the breakfast table the next day, with heavy dark circles under her eyes, she really startled the Emperor and Rupert. They thought Risha was troubled by the people from the Nazca Principality and immediately demanded to drive them away. But Risha thought they were making a big deal over nothing. Then she stretched and quickly changed the subject. "I feel so tired. I really hope someone will hold me all day today." Upon hearing this, the Emperor and Rupert competed to hug her. Seeing her family members who loved her so much, Risha finally smiled and stopped thinking about her inability to kill the Demon King. No matter what, the Demon King had not affected her daily life yet, so she decided to spare his life for now. If he dared to cause any trouble later on, she would be the first one to go and beat him up. Having resolved her worries, Risha happily opened her arms to the Emperor and Rupert. Then come and give me hugs quickly. In the afternoon, Aunt Fiona visited with her young son Phoebe. At the sight of the soft and adorable little boy, Risha was completely melted by his cuteness. The maids watching this scene could not help but shed tears of excitement. They had never expected to witness one baby taking care of another baby. It was a true cuteness overload for them, and Aunt Fiona was almost fainting from how cute the two of them were. Then she brought out her specialty sweets to treat Risha and Rupert. Risha was amazed by her incredible skills after just one bite. This praise made Aunt Fiona's heart bloom with joy. "Oh, you are so cute! Raising girls must be very fun." Watching their interaction, Rupert was quite jealous. "So, Aunt Fiona, did you come here just to give us these desserts?" Aunt Fiona immediately became serious when she heard this. "Of course not. I came to tell you about a strange rumor that has been going around. I am sure that you know that Lady Cecilia made her social debut much earlier than anyone had expected." Rupert dismissed this carelessly. "So what? Compared to our Risha, she is like a firefly next to the bright sun." Aunt Fiona deeply agreed with that statement. "That is true. But not long ago, Marquis Harris's daughter, Lady Amanda, became her maid. The reason Amanda willingly became her maid is supposedly because Cecilia possesses the power of purifying magic. As everyone knows, Amanda suffered from a petrification curse during her childhood. Elsa was shocked because royals with purifying magic are very rare, and the last princess with that magic was 200 years ago. Aunt Fiona said that she also found it to be incredible. But everyone at the tea party that day saw Cecilia slightly purify Amanda's petrification curse. Risha despised Cecilia's manipulative behavior. Rupert also saw that Cecilia chose this specific time to reveal her purifying magic, clearly intending to connect with the Nazca Principality. Since that was the case, Risha decided to go along with the situation and take the opportunity to make it bigger. Seeing her clever and very decisive expression, Aunt Fiona immediately hugged her for another round of cuddles. Risha was almost suffocated by Aunt Fiona's strong embrace, and Phoebe also grinned, insisting on feeding her some strawberries. Risha could not refuse this cute and adorable offensive. She picked up her own cherry to return the favor. The little Phoebe happily ate the cherry that she gave to him. The four of them spent a very pleasant afternoon having tea together. Meanwhile, Cecilia excitedly ran home to show off to her parents. "Dad, Mom, I have received a request for help from the Nazca Principality." The Archduke and his wife were thrilled to see the letter, because only someone like the Emperor could receive such a request. Cecilia proudly raised her head under their amazed prayers. Soon, news of Cecilia receiving the request spread like wildfire, making the noble ladies look at her with new respect. After all, even the prince and princess could not receive help requests, because they both lacked purifying magic. Additionally, Cecilia could also gain Amanda's loyalty. Now, even though Akira was expelled from the palace, the blonde family did not have to worry. Cecilia herself also believed the throne would eventually belong to her. But Amanda felt very uneasy about her upcoming help to purify the curse of the Nazca Principality's heir. So that night, she went to find Cecilia for confirmation. Cecilia was very impatient hearing this. "Of course I have to help. They are desperately requesting my assistance." Amanda became more panicked and fell to her knees. "Lady Cecilia, please use your purifying magic on me more." Cecilia was immediately displeased. "What? Are you afraid that if I share my power with the Nazca heir, there will be less left for you?" Amanda, trembling, spoke. "It's not like that. It's because I am in so much pain." Before she finished speaking, Cecilia kicked her to the ground. "How selfish of you, trying to keep the powers of purification all to yourself. I do not like such selfish people. If you continue acting like this, I cannot guarantee you will remain as my maid." Amanda watched Cecilia's departing figure and silently shed her tears. She knew that if she wanted to reduce the curse's pain, she could only rely on Cecilia. But to control her, Cecilia would probably never help her completely purify the curse in her lifetimes. What Amanda did not know was that the bullying scene was perfectly captured by Risha's invisible eye. Risha looked in disbelief at Amanda's face, which was identical to Rose's face. Rose, the only S-class hunter with dual professions in her past life, played a major role in the battle to defeat the Demon King. She had also taken great care of Risha before her rebirth. The weapons Rose made in her past life saved her and her brother's lives multiple times, so Risha always looked forward to reuniting with Rose in this life. But she did not expect that the arrogant Lady Cecilia would dare to bully her like this, which almost made her die from anger. Just then, the system issued a new quest: cause the fall of Cecilia Blonde's reputation and purify Amanda Harris's curse. Risha knew Cecilia wanted to use her purifying power to strengthen her own position, but thinking about how Mikhail would wake up because of Cecilia's help made her feel very annoyed. Suddenly, Risha seemed to think of something, then found a bottle of a D-class purification potion from her pile of items. She immediately had a very good idea and happily went to find the Emperor. The next day, Cecilia agreed to the Nazca Principality's request, just as Risha had expected. Today, the Emperor would personally arrange for her to meet with the people who came from the Nazca Principality. Cecilia was naturally very pleased about this development. After all, this meant the Emperor recognized her healing power. She changed into gorgeous formal wear and entered the palace. Everyone was surprised by her outfit. Amanda presented this designer dress to Cecilia, and the ruby crown on her head was the Harris family's heirloom. They began to speculate that the Harris family had completely submitted to Cecilia. At this moment, Cecilia finally saw Mikhail lying in the crystal coffin. Seeing his handsome face, Cecilia couldn't help but fantasize about a romantic love story. She thought about how both Mikhail and Amanda would submit to her in the future, and how even the throne would be hers. The corners of her mouth stretched so wide, they nearly reached her ears. Just then, Risha arrived with the Emperor and her brother. Seeing that Risha was no longer the center of attention like before, Cecilia became even more excited, because this meant she would soon completely replace Risha's position. The nobles who had originally supported Risha also began to waver. But strangely, compared to Cecilia, the people from the Nazca Principality seemed to favor Risha more. This made the elder suddenly realize that it might be Prince Mikhail's own emotions affecting them. Gradually, this influence began to expand, and the nobles, who were just wavering, once again showed their fondness for Risha, making Cecilia grind her teeth in anger. At this moment, the Emperor called Cecilia to come forward. He once again confirmed with her whether she truly possessed purifying magic. Cecilia confidently stated that she could successfully purify Prince Mikhail's curse and wanted to make a request to the Emperor. The Chamberlain thought her arrogant behavior was offensive, but Lady Blonde didn't mind. After all, her daughter was a purification user that appears once in a century. The last person with that ability eventually ascended to the throne, so she hoped her daughter could receive what she truly deserved. Now everyone understood her ambition. She wanted to use this opportunity to push Cecilia into the position of a princess. But since Cecilia had not successfully completed the purification yet, the Emperor decided to let her use this purification as proof of whether she was qualified to be a royal. If Cecilia failed this proof, she would lose her inheritance rights, just as the disgraced noble from a few years ago was stripped of his inheritance rights. Lady Blonde panicked upon hearing this and wanted to refuse. No one is fighting with magic this time, Risha quickly retorted, but she is trying to become a princess by using her purifying magic. Isn't that an even greater demonstration of power than a duel? Ultimately, Cecilia's purification was successfully designated as a proof of ability for the royal family. If she could successfully purify him, she could smoothly become a princess. If she failed, she would be stripped of her inheritance rights and gold mine ownership. Since Akira's gold mine was reclaimed, the gold mine in Cecilia's hands was the Billen family's only remaining gold mine. Provoked by her own competitive spirit, Cecilia gritted her teeth and accepted the challenge. She had to use this opportunity to replace Risha and drive her out of the palace. Then, at the Emperor's command, Cecilia began to purify Prince Mikhail. But even after using up all of her magic power, Mikhail still showed no signs of waking up. Cecilia's face gradually became twisted, but what she did not know was that Mikhail was not actually under any curse. Instead, there seemed to be a hole in his body that was absorbing all of the magic power. Magic is the life force of all living beings, so he remained in a coma. At this moment, the system frantically prompted her to kill Mikhail, and Risha thought keeping Mikhail alive was a threat that might replay the tragedy. Just then, because Prince Mikhail still had not awakened, voices of doubt began to emerge from the crowd. This nerve-wracking situation finally made Cecilia lose her temper. She rushed forward directly and frantically pounced on the crystal coffin. Wake up right now. I purified your curse, I really did. The people from the Nazca Principality immediately dragged her away from the crystal coffin, then mercilessly pushed her to the ground. Cecilia felt wronged and asked the Emperor to provide justice for her, but she received Risha's ruthless mockery. Stupid carrot head! That isn't a curse. Even if it was, your weak purifying magic wouldn't have been enough. Only now did Cecilia finally realize that she had been tricked. She immediately pointed at Risha and began cursing. Everyone was scared by her madness. It turned out that only she could hear what Risha had just said. So now, she was just a crazy woman making trouble in front of everyone. The elder from the Nazca Principality also thought that Cecilia had deceived them. Cecilia panicked and quickly asked Amanda to testify for her. The next second, Amanda suddenly collapsed to the ground. Risha rushed forward in alarm to help her. The moment that she touched Amanda, the sunstone suddenly emitted a dazzling light. Enveloped in the light, Risha quickly fed Amanda an A- class curse purification potion. As soon as she fed it to her, the system indicated that Amanda's petrification curse had been lifted. Then Risha fed her a strength potion. After she did all of this, the light around them finally disappeared. Cecilia incredulously questioned what Risha did, but Risha just made a funny face at her. At this moment, Amanda's father, Marky Harris, rushed over to her anxiously, nervously hugging Amanda and calling out her name. Repeatedly seeing this familiar face, Risha couldn't help but fall into her memories. He was Rose's father, whom she had met at Rose's funeral. Even though Risha could not protect Rose, he still did not blame her, and had even thanked her. Risha did not expect they would have a chance to reunite again in this life. This time, she definitely would not let them be separated again. At this moment, Marky Harris also noticed Amanda's perfectly healed legs. The people around were amazed that Princess Risha could completely lift Amanda's curse. This meant that Princess Risha also possessed powerful purifying magic. Realizing this, Marky Harris dropped to his knees and bowed deeply to Risha, stating that the Harris family would never forget this incredible kindness. Just as Risha wanted to tell him not to worry about such things, the crystal coffin that was behind them suddenly exploded. Then Prince Mikhail slowly stood up amid all of their shock. Seeing this, Cecilia quickly picked up the fallen crown and put it on. Then she took credit before the Emperor. She also did not forget to order the people from the Nazca Principality, who treated her rudely, to kneel and apologize. Just as she was immersed in the joy of her success, Michal suddenly stopped the elder who was about to apologize, and stated that he wanted to personally apologize to his savior. Then he bypassed Cecilia in front of everyone and devoutly knelt on one knee before Risha. I, Mikhail of Nazca, thank you, my savior. While Risha looked confused at the scene before her, Cecilia beside her lost control. What nonsense are you talking about? This is too outrageous. I'm clearly the one who purified your curse. Are you confused from just waking up? Saying this, she tried to grab Mikhail's shoulder, but was harshly slapped away by him. Then Mikhail looked at her with a very dark expression. Although I have just woken up, I was conscious during my coma. After saying this, he looked at Risha with deep affection. So I would never mistake my savior. Then he devoutly kissed the back of her hand, leaving Risha stunned. The next second, Risha was scooped up by the Emperor. Then the Emperor and Rupert entered first-level alert mode. Risha, let's wipe your hand. You dare to put your mouth on our precious hand? What audacity! I had to shove you back into that coffin. Seeing them making a big fuss, Risha quickly clapped her hands to change the subject. So the ability proof test ends here. Lady Cecilia has failed to complete the purification, so I have won the bet. Although Mikhail was not awakened by her, there was no harm in taking advantage of a free opportunity. Everyone, upon hearing Risha's words, began to compliment her. While the Billund family looked ashen, Cecilia shed tears of unwillingness. That evening, the Archduke Billund's mansion was looted by a large group of people. When the Chamberlain arrived to take Cecilia's gold mine rights document for Risha, he happened to run into the wrathful Lady Blonde. Chamberlain, you are going too far. Just for taking a gold mine rights document, is it necessary to turn our house upside down? The Chamberlain waved his hands repeatedly. Lady Blonde, you misunderstand. I do not know these people at all. Cecilia could not stand it. If you didn't bring them, then who else could it be? At this moment, a familiar voice came from behind. They were sent by us. The newcomers were actually Marky Harris and Amanda. Seeing Amanda, Cecilia immediately went forward enthusiastically and grabbed her hand. Lady Amanda, why are you here? How is your health condition? What is going on? But Amanda only responded coldly. After fainting and waking up again, my condition improved remarkably. I came with my father because I have something I must tell you. Cecilia thought Amanda came to thank her. You are really too polite. But it makes sense. After all, when you were tormented by the curse, only I offered a helping hand. Before she could finish speaking, Amanda harshly pulled the crown off her head. Then Amanda stared at her coldly. Take off that dress. You are not qualified to wear it. Cecilia did not expect Amanda to suddenly start treating her like this. She questioned her in terror. What are you saying? Seeing her cowardly appearance, Amanda showed a cold smile. It seems you are not only wicked, but also hard of hearing. Being humiliated, Cecilia trembled with intense anger. She immediately pointed at Amanda and started cursing. How dare you treat me this way? Until this morning you were still pestering me. You ungrateful bastard! Amanda, hearing her words, acted like she had heard the biggest joke. Your kindness? Are you referring to how you used the curse as an excuse to boss me around and humiliate me every day? Now that you received my kindness, you should be grateful. Cecilia immediately retorted. I helped you purify your curse. How is that not a kindness? Amanda immediately made a gesture, sarcastically saying, You only purified this tiny bit of my curse. Your small bit of kindness does not deserve our family's heirloom and dress, so I am taking them back. Plus, all of the other gifts that I have given you so far, I am taking them all away from you. Cecilia immediately exploded. You already gave them to me. Once they are in my hands, they are mine. What right do you have to take my things? Before she could finish speaking, Amanda's maids forcibly dragged her away. At this moment, Lady Blonde finally approached Amanda. So, Lady Amanda, what about your support for us? Amanda glanced at her indifferently. Of course, it is terminated. You can sue us if you have any objections to this. Lady Blonde felt like she was falling into an ice cave upon hearing this. Meanwhile, the maids had already stripped the dress off Cecilia. Cecilia cursed angrily. You showered us with gifts when you needed us, and now you are taking them back like it never happened. Do you want them back so badly? Even after everything I did for you? Amanda, hearing this, lets out a cold laugh, then removed a small gemstone from the dress and threw it in front of her. This should be enough to pay for your services. This gemstone seems to be worth more than the tiny bit of curse you purified. The humiliated Cecilia viciously shouted at Amanda. Even if you steal it back, it will not suit someone like you. Amanda turned back and glanced at her indifferently. Indeed, neither you nor I are suitable for it. There is only one person who truly deserves these things, and that is the angel-like princess. Afterward, people throughout the nation learned about the true nature of the Blonde family, and felt very happy that Princess Risha possessed purification magic. The Chamberlain also successfully obtained the gold mine rights document for Risha, which immediately filled her with excitement. However, the dam system started reporting errors at a bad time, leaving Risha quite disappointed. The Emperor asked her carefully, What is wrong? Risha saw their worried expressions and quickly waved her hands to indicate that she was fine, then held up the gold mine rights document and showed it off proudly, finally getting rid of their concerns. When the three of them were walking, hand in hand, through the long corridor, Risha somehow suddenly thought of that annoying Prince Mikhail. She could not help but let out a very soft sigh, which immediately put the Emperor and Rupert into a first-level alert mode. The two of them unanimously decided to drive away Prince Mikhail, who had disturbed Risha's peace of mind, which made Risha so angry that she yelled directly at them. You two are really too much. I already told you that this matter has nothing to do with Mikhail. But her words only made the Emperor and Rupert's anger explode. Seeing that Risha even remembered Mikhail's name, they showed an even more threatening fake smile. Now their plan to drive away Mikhail had become even more urgent. Risha realized she couldn't argue with these two childish guys, so she started acting cute. Dad, brother, I want to go to the garden for a walk, but my legs hurt. Can you carry me? Sure enough, once she said this, they immediately became completely obedient. Risha happily thought that this trick really works every single time. In the afternoon, Marky Harris and Amanda voluntarily came to thank them. The Emperor and Rupert insisted on staying by Risha's side, afraid she might be deceived because she was too kind. Risha found this very speechless, but thought that Rose's family had been family friends with hers in the previous life, so she planned to use this opportunity to let the Emperor and Rupert get closer to them, which seemed nice. However, she did not expect that as soon as Marquis Harris and Amanda arrived, they would immediately fall to their knees with a thud. "Your Highness, we are grateful for the kindness you showed my daughter, but please punish me, the sinner who violated the covenant." Risha was completely confused by these words and looked toward the Emperor. He explained that the founding Emperor once made a covenant with the founding noble families. They agreed that none of them could interfere in any succession disputes. In return, the founding Emperor gave 10 gold mines and granaries to the ancestor of the Harris family. This was all to prevent succession disputes from losing their fairness. Originally, the Marquis Harris family had been doing well for many generations, but recently they had violated this sacred covenant. Hearing this, Marquis Harris immediately started kowtowing repeatedly to them. "Your Majesty, it is all my fault. I was blinded by my eagerness to save my daughter. Everything is my fault." Hearing this, Amanda also began to cry beside him. "No, it's all my fault. My father only did that to help me remove the curse." Risha looked at them constantly begging for mercy and immediately felt troubled. At this moment, Marquis Harris specially presented a family heirloom to Risha to show his sincerity. She did not expect him to give such a precious treasure to her, while the Emperor and Rupert looked on. They were pleased with this development. But at this crucial moment, the dam system couldn't help at all. Just when Risha was anxiously wondering what to do, the Emperor suddenly spoke. "Since that is the case, then, according to your request, we will revoke your title and property for the princess." Seeing the situation turning bad, Risha quickly pretended to cry. This scared the Emperor and Rupert, who immediately rushed to her side, but she just expressed that she was simply too moved. For a moment, she seemed to see the Emperor and her brother's reflection in Marquis Harris, who deeply loves his daughter. The Emperor and Rupert were immediately moved and quickly promised her that no matter what happened, they would always be her solid support. Risha tightly hugged them both upon hearing their comforting words. They ignored the others and got emotional, leaving Marquis Harris and Amanda completely stunned. Afterward, the now calm Emperor announced the final punishment for the Harris family. "No matter what, the fact that you violated the covenant cannot be changed. But considering your later support for the princess, I will specially let the princess decide your punishment." Then Risha smiled and extended her hand toward Amanda. "Then let's become friends from now on." Amanda did not expect her to forgive them so easily, and she immediately expressed her willingness to become Risha's maid and serve her for life. Seeing this, the Emperor and Rupert became greatly annoyed, because another person was competing with them for Risha's attention. That evening, Risha stared at the continuously malfunctioning system thoughtfully. Recently, the system couldn't even display daily quests properly. Thinking carefully, every quest the system issued revolved around her real-life encounters, and it even gave her skills and equipment that did not belong to her, including things that the Demon King from her past life possessed. These strange rewards had been troubling her, making her unable to sleep well for the past few nights. Fortunately, the Emperor suddenly suggested going on a picnic, so she could finally temporarily forget those annoying matters and relax. Luckily, after she had saved Amanda, she obtained a skill upgrade pass. She immediately used it to upgrade her ability to see other people's magic power. Although it was troublesome that she needed to hold hands and had time limits, this ability was still very practical and useful. At this moment, Risha suddenly saw a giant rock blocking their carriage. The next second, Mikhail slowly walked down the steps from the giant rock. It turned out this giant rock was actually the Nazca Principality. He was doing this because the Emperor suddenly issued him an eviction order. Risha thought about the Emperor and Rupert's deception toward her, and said harshly that she was very disappointed in them, then flew toward Mikhail's direction. Seeing her coming toward him, Mikhail immediately knelt on one knee and thanked her for saving his life, feeling that not properly thanking her before leaving would be very impolite. But Risha directly gave him a very hard punch. In her past life, she had sworn that when she saw the Demon King again, she would beat him up badly. Now she had finally fulfilled her wish. After being punched by her, Mikhail still considerately asked with concern, "Do you feel better now? But please do not continue, or I might be beaten to death by you." Risha was speechless at his smooth-talking manner. Then she suddenly smiled and extended her hand toward him. "Then let's properly greet each other again." The moment that Mikhail grasped her hand, Risha showed a very sly smile. because she could finally investigate his magic power. However, what she did not expect was that she not only failed to sense his magic power, but she also discovered a strange black hole in his heart. Just as she was puzzled by this bizarre phenomenon, Mikhail suddenly fell uncontrollably into her arms. Sensing his rapidly draining life force, Risha immediately panicked. Generally speaking, magic power is generated by the heart and the brain. Once either part has been injured, serious problems occur throughout the body. And now, Mikhail, with his damaged heart, was obviously about to die. Seeing that his life was in danger, Risha could only grit her teeth and use the precious slap of encouragement and growth skill. The moment she slapped down on him, Mikhail's condition quickly improved. Risha sent the unconscious Mikhail back to the Nazca Principality and asked the elder to tell Mikhail, "I saved him twice, so now his life belongs to me." At this exact moment, Mikhail just woke up. He struggled to shout toward Risha's retreating figure, "Risha, I am willing to bet everything to repay this life-saving grace." Risha did not expect him to actually use oath magic to make a vow, and this was the first time he had called her by her name. He had never said her name before. He really was becoming more and more like the Demon King from her previous life. When Risha returned to the ground, the Emperor and Rupert anxiously rushed over to fuss over her, but she had not forgotten about them deceiving her, so she didn't give them a good look. She happily took Amanda's hand and returned to the palace. On the other side, Archduke Billund returned home and saw his dejected daughter, giving her a look of disgust. "Who are you putting this act on for? As long as you can prove your magic power is stronger than the princess and prince, our family will still have a chance to turn things around. Now there is a way to increase your magic power. Are you willing to try it?" Cecilia immediately became tempted and agreed to her father's proposal, not knowing this would become the beginning of her nightmare. 3 days later, Risha was playing with Amanda in the garden. She asked Amanda if she had any hobbies, but Amanda previously had no desire to develop hobbies because she was so deeply affected by the curse. Fortunately, now that she had recovered her health, she finally had the time to properly develop some. At this moment, a maid proudly showed her the portrait paintings of Risha from childhood to adulthood that she drew herself. She expressed that if Amanda wanted to learn, she would definitely help her with all her heart. Amanda was startled by her enthusiastic manner. "I am so grateful and honored by your kindness, but shouldn't you be concerned about something more pressing?" Hearing Amanda mention them, the Emperor and Rupert immediately jumped out, looking pitiful. "You have not talked to us for 3 days. These 3 days we could not eat well or sleep well." Risha stared at them helplessly. "So, can you guarantee that you will never do that again?" Hearing that she was finally willing to relent, they immediately said in unison that they would never do it again. So Risha reluctantly forgave them for their actions, making the Emperor and Rupert so happy that they immediately gave her a loving hug. Seeing this, Risha was speechless and pointed to the sunstone above the castle. "How are you so happy that you are making the sunstone glow?" But the Emperor and Rupert unanimously claimed it had nothing to do with them. On the other side, in a clothing store on the street, the dress that Cecilia had worn was hanging brightly displayed in the shop. It turned out that Amanda had lied to Cecilia back then. This was not a dress specially customized for Cecilia, but it was a defective product that had been unsold for 2 years. Just as the noble ladies were happily discussing gossip together, Cecilia happened to overhear everything. Thinking that the dress she wore was just a sample, she could not help but clench her fists. Then, thinking about the dress Amanda had specially customized for Risha, her anger reached its peak. Why does everyone only like that brat? At this moment, her magic power suddenly started going berserk. She felt an excruciating pain throughout her entire body, and thinking about the torture she had endured these past days, she lost control of herself even more. People were scared by her appearance, and quickly fled in all directions. Suddenly, there was a loud crash from the roof, and the next second, Risha stopped Cecilia. "Carrot Head, what exactly are you doing now?" But seeing Risha made Cecilia's emotions completely lose control, and she launched a wild attack on Risha. Risha saw that her condition was very wrong, and her magic power also looked somewhat strange. So Risha directly knocked her down with just one punch. The next second, Cecilia started covering her head and screaming that it hurts. Archduke Billund immediately ordered his servants to take Cecilia back to the mansion. Then he apologized to Risha. "I'm sorry, Your Highness. It looks like my daughter had a mental breakdown after failing to prove her powers." Before Risha could speak, the Emperor and Rupert had already rushed over with murderous intent. "You have a lot of nerve. She dared to attack my daughter. You and your daughter's lives will never be enough to atone for this offense." Risha signaled the Emperor to calm down, since there were other people around. However, this was the normal reaction a father should have. Thinking about Archduke Biland's behavior just now, Risha realized that he was obviously feeling guilty. It seemed Cecilia becoming like this was related to him. Suddenly, Archduke Biland started making accusations in front of everyone. "What exactly did my poor daughter do wrong?" Originally, there was an unwritten rule that royalty could compete for inheritance rights among themselves. If this is treason, then shouldn't someone who killed 5 of his own family members to gain power be executed 5 times? The Emperor knew he was insinuating about him, and said coldly, "You look down on me so much. Back then, you did not expect I would successfully ascend to the throne in the end. At that moment, listening to your foul language, I did not bother to harm you. Do you know why? Because you were not even worth killing." The Emperor's words immediately made Archduke Biland tremble with rage. Then the Emperor ordered the arrest of Archduke Biland and Cecilia. Archduke Biland immediately protested that since everyone witnessed the fight between Risha and Cecilia, it meant the power demonstration had already begun. The previous time was just to compete for gold mine ownership, but this time is to compete for inheritance rights. As royalty, she has the obligation to accept power demonstration challenges. The Emperor and Rupert's expressions immediately became very unpleasant upon hearing this. But Risha accepted the challenge without any hesitation. However, she looked at Cecilia, who was half dead on the ground, with disgust. If the ability test continued now, wouldn't she still win by default? Archduke Biland hastily explained that Cecilia had just reawakened her magic power, and was now only temporarily unconscious due to her unstable magic power. Hearing what he said, Risha flew to Cecilia's side for an examination. After checking her thoroughly, she showed a cold smile. "Since that's the case, let's wait until Cecilia recovers before continuing the power demonstration. But the condition is that she must be personally cared for by me." In a dimly lit room, Cecilia lies in bed, letting out a pained groan. Waking with a throbbing head, Cecilia wonders what happened as Risha sits by her bedside and asks if she is awake. Cecilia's eyes snap open in shock upon seeing the young princess. Risha stands with her arms crossed, looking down at Cecilia with a stern and commanding presence. Filled with rage, Cecilia sits up abruptly, questioning why Risha is there. A wave of panic washes over Cecilia as her heart thumps in her chest. She suddenly clutches her head and screams in agony, while Risha watches impassively from a nearby chair. Crying out to her mother about the unbearable pain, Cecilia writhes on the bed as Risha looks on. Risha calmly tells the distraught Cecilia to listen to what she has to say. She delivers a stark warning, telling Cecilia that she will die if she continues on her current path. Risha begins to explain the history of her former world, where awakened people emerged to protect humanity from the Demon King. She continues her story, speaking of a contrary group known as the Apostolic Order, who chose to embrace the world's fated destruction. Risha reveals that the Order's method was to force people into a half-awakened state to gather corrupt power, which they could then use to summon the Demon King. She concludes her tale by stating that this was the very method used to summon the Demon King in her past life. A sudden realization dawns on Risha as her eyes glow with power. The Order was responsible for the deaths of everyone she knew. Using her ability, Risha sees a system window that identifies Cecilia Biland as a C-class, half-awakened individual, confirming the Order's presence in this new world. Risha thinks to herself that, while she had her suspicions, the system information has made her certain. Confused, Cecilia asks what Risha is talking about, prompting Risha to explain that Cecilia's condition is not a reawakening, but a dangerous half-awakening that is draining her life force. In utter disbelief, Cecilia clenches her bedsheets, refusing to accept Risha's words. Risha narrows her gaze, focusing her unique sight on the distressed girl. Cecilia desperately clings to the belief that her parents would never subject her to something that could lead to her death. Risha calmly questions Cecilia, asking if someone promised her a reawakening that resulted in increased magic, but a sharp decline in her health. As Cecilia's heart pounds with fear, Risha presses on, asking if she also became emotionally unstable and suffered from intense pain. Overwhelmed, Cecilia bows her head, questioning how Risha could know such details, and wondering if her own father could truly be responsible. Risha observes Cecilia's internal struggle noticing that the system message she is trying to read is breaking up again. She reflects on how the system often glitches when providing critical information, particularly about Mikhail, leading her to believe it has been tampered with. Risha concludes that to complete her quest, she must find a way to appease Cecilia and get the information directly from her. Acknowledging that diplomacy isn't her strong suit, Risha bluntly asks Cecilia if she wants to live. Cecilia retorts with outrage, declaring that of course she wants to live. Covering her face in despair, Cecilia insists that Risha is lying and that her father would never do such a thing to her. Her eye becomes bloodshot with fury as she screams at Risha, accusing the princess of making her life miserable. Through her tear-filled, enraged eyes, Cecilia sees Risha's calm reflection and screams that the princess knows nothing of her pain. Realizing that Cecilia is too hysterical to listen to reason, Risha decides to change her approach. She turns her back and tells Cecilia to forget it and go home. As Risha walks toward the door, she tells Cecilia that there is nothing more to discuss if she refuses to trust her. In a moment of desperation, Cecilia calls out, reminding Risha that she needs information from her. Reaching the door, Risha coolly replies that she can figure things out on her own. With a small, knowing smile, Risha pauses and tells Cecilia to write to her if she changes her mind. Her final words are a chilling piece of advice for Cecilia to think carefully before she ends up dead. The door slams shut, leaving a stunned and silent Cecilia alone in the room. Cecilia is left alone with her thoughts, contemplating Risha's ominous words. The door suddenly bursts open, and Cecilia calls out in alarm. Her father, Archduke Billund, enters the room and acknowledges that she is awake. He coldly informs a bewildered Cecilia that they are going home so she can prepare for her power demonstration. A fortnight later, Risha is seen looking out over the palace grounds. She sits alone, nibbling on a cookie, and worries because she still has not heard from Cecilia. Risha reassures herself that the lack of a quest-failed message means Cecilia is likely considering her offer. She takes an angry bite of her cookie, frustrated that she can't resolve the situation with force. Risha speculates that the apostolic order might be blocking her powers, which would explain why her invisible eye and the system are malfunctioning. She resolves that she must make Carrot Top talk, just as a maid enters the room. The maid informs Risha that a letter has arrived from an unexpected sender. Risha takes the letter, with confused expressions. Confident grin spreads across her face as she examines the envelope. The letter is signed by Cecilia Belonde, prompting Risha to think that Carrot Top has finally surrendered. Later that night, Risha arrives at a secluded house under the light of the full moon. As she approaches the meeting spot, Risha remarks that Cecilia's presence proves her desperation. She finds Cecilia waiting inside, cloaked and hooded, and notes that her magic feels stronger. Risha congratulates Cici on her progress, while Cecilia looks back at her with a deeply troubled and uncertain expression. Standing before a cloaked Cecilia, Risha asks, with her arms crossed, if her presence means Cecilia is asking for help. Risha confidently confirms that she can, indeed, help her. She partially pulls back her hood, her expression pleading as she begins to beg. Now fully revealing her desperate and tear-streaked face, Cecilia admits that she needs Risha's help. A painful memory flashes through Cecilia's mind of being crucified, crying out that the torment is killing her and she can't bear it any longer. Overcome with despair, Cecilia's body gives out and she collapses onto the floor. On her hands and knees, she sobs that she does not want to die. Risha looks down upon the pathetic scene with a cold, unwavering gaze. She calmly tells the groveling Cecilia that she will help her. Risha then adds a condition, stating that there is something Cecilia must tell her first. Risha demands to know who put her in the half-awakened state. Cecilia looks up with a nervous sweat, hesitating to answer the princess's question. A breeze seems to rustle through the room as Cecilia begins to speak. The two stand opposite each other as Cecilia explains the little she knows about her condition. After listening to the explanation, Risha simply says that she understands. Cecilia frantically insists that she has sworn she has told Risha everything that she knows. Risha reassures her that it's all right and that she will keep her promise to help her live. With a wave of her hand, Risha activates a translucent blue system window in front of her. From the system, she materializes a small, ornate bottle containing a swirling pink liquid. Risha explains that drinking the potion will reverse her half-awakened state, while a system pop-up notes a severe side effect, the deactivation of all magic circuits. Cecilia looks up with wide, hopeful eyes, but her relief is cut short as Risha continues. Risha delivers the bad news, stating plainly that if Cecilia drinks the potion, she will lose all of her magical powers. The hope in Cecilia's eyes instantly vanishes, replaced by utter shock and disbelief. Risha nonchalantly asks if losing her powers isn't a better alternative than losing her life. Cecilia clutches her chest in protest, demanding to be given the same potion as Lady Amanda, which had no such effect. Risha calmly explains that their situations are entirely different. An image of him screaming in agony, consumed by dark magic, flashes as Risha explains that half-awakening is a forbidden magic because it destroys the body. She sternly tells Cecilia that she should have never done it, prompting Cecilia to cry out that she was unaware of the consequences. Cecilia turns away in despair, realizing that losing her magic would mean losing her status as a member of the imperial family. Risha watches her with an unsympathetic, almost bored expression. She callously tells Cecilia she can go ahead and die as a member of the imperial family if she wishes, turning to leave. Panicked Cecilia reaches out, desperately crying for Risha to wait. Tears streaming down her face, Cecilia begs, declaring that she wants to live and will take the potion. Without turning back, Risha casually tosses the potion over her shoulder. She warns Cecilia that the potion will not work if her condition worsens, so she must drink it within a fortnight. Clutching the potion to her chest, Cecilia listens as Risha tells her not to say she wasn't warned. Risha says a final goodbye and exits the room, the door slamming shut behind her. Left alone in the quiet room, Cecilia stares down at the sparkling pink potion in her hands. She contemplates the terrible choice before her, losing her magic and her royal rights. She clutches the bottle tightly, torn between her fear of death and her fear of a life without power and plagued by pain. With tears in her eyes, she remembers her upcoming power demonstration, adding another layer to her turmoil. Her eyes snap open as a sudden, suspicious thought crosses her mind. She realizes that Risha's fortnight deadline coincides exactly with the date of her power demonstration in 2 weeks. A dark, sinister image of Risha appears in her mind as she wonders if this is all a plot to strip her of her powers before the demonstration. Her heart pounds with uncertainty, questioning whether the princess she despises could actually be telling her the truth. With a grim and conflicted thought, Cecilia looks up from the potion, her decision still unmade. At a grand public ceremony, nobles are seen gossiping about the recent incident involving Lady Cecilia's pillar of fire and the princess who stopped it. A lady praises the princess's kindness, mentioning that she even used her own money to compensate the owner of the shop that burned down. Another pair of nobles expresses their worry for the young princess, shocked that Lady Cecilia would challenge her 7-year-old cousin. Another pair of nobles expresses their worry for the young princess, shocked that Lady Cecilia would challenge her 7-year-old cousin. The emperor, looking regal, raises his hand to announce that the ritual is about to begin. A murmur goes through the crowd as they announce the arrival of Her Highness. Risha makes her entrance, looking serious and composed in a formal teal military-style dress. Cecilia steps forward to face her, dressed in an equally elaborate purple outfit. Risha calmly watches her approach, noting that Cecilia has clearly made her decision. Cecilia stands tall and smirks, a system window confirming she has not taken the potion and has advanced to a half-awakened A-class. She thanks Risha for her concern with a confident, mocking tone. A bright flame erupts in her hand as she declares that she will be the one to take care of her own life. Leaping into the air, wreathed in fire, Cecilia launches a powerful attack and screams for the princess to die. An explosion of fire erupts as Cecilia attacks, and a spectator cries out that the princess is losing because she is too young to fight. Risha stands calmly amidst a barrage of fireballs, while the crowd cheers for her to stay strong and not let Cecilia win. Unfazed by the chaos, Risha covers her mouth with her hand and lets out a casual, bored yawn. She thinks to herself that, to the onlookers, it must appear as though she is losing the fight. With her eyes closed, Risha confidently scoffs at the notion, knowing that even if Cecilia's power increased tenfold, she would still be no match. She glances up at a balcony, noticing the worried expressions on the faces of her father, the emperor, and her brother, Rupert. Risha gives them a playful wink and a peace sign, reassuring them that they have no reason to worry. Cecilia shouts in frustration as Risha effortlessly dodges her attacks with a nimble leap. With a ball of fire swirling in her hand, an annoyed Cecilia yells at Risha to focus on their duel. Risha stops with her arms spread wide in a cheerful smile, declaring that this is all too boring for her. Cecilia glares, her face contorting with rage at Risha's dismissive attitude. Screaming for Risha not to belittle her, She unleashes several pillars of fire from the ground. Engulfed in a massive cloud of fire and smoke, Cecilia vows that she will kill the princess. She pauses for a moment, a flicker of concern on her face, as she realizes how cruel her actions must appear to the crowd. Two noble ladies in the audience gasp in horror, whispering about how awful it is for Cecilia to be so mean to her young cousin. Cecilia looks bewildered as she hears the crowd turn against her, now cheering for the princess and calling Cecilia a nasty lady. She wonders aloud why she is suddenly being treated like the villain in this fight. Her expression hardens with resentment as she fumes about how the crowd doesn't know what Risha has put her through, and questions why she is always the one who ends up being hated. Glaring at Risha, Cecilia angrily asks why the princess gets all the love. She clenches her fist tightly, her thoughts trailing off on the love and acceptance she also wished for. Snapping with fury, Cecilia launches a powerful sphere of fire toward the stands, screaming for the morons to shut up. The fiery blast hits a protective barrier just in front of the horrified spectators, who scream in terror. The nobles, their eyes wide with fear, exclaim that they would be dead if not for the barrier, and express their disbelief that someone so reckless is part of the imperial family. Gasping for breath and sweating, Cecilia's rage intensifies, as she warns that the sun god will be enraged by their insolence. She clutches at herself, surrounded by an unstable aura of fire, and screams for it all to stop. Risha watches her cousin's emotional and magical breakdown with a calm, observant expression. She recognizes that Cecilia's body is beginning to break down from the strain of her half-awakened state. In a vision, Risha appears before Cecilia within a digital matrix, casually greeting Carrot Top. She looks at Cecilia with an unnervingly calm expression and bluntly informs her that she is going to die soon. Cecilia stares back, her eyes wide with shock and disbelief at the princess's sudden and grim proclamation. As Risha begins to warn her about the potion, Cecilia cuts her off with a crazed, disbelieving laugh. With a deranged smile, her body now wrapped in thorny energy, Cecilia accuses Risha of lying. She clutches her chest and screams maniacally that Risha's words can't be true because she knows the princess hates her. Risha calmly and directly admits to Cecilia that, to be honest, she does indeed hate her. Wreathed in fire, Cecilia furiously argues that Risha's confession proves she is lying, claiming the princess only wants to strip her of her magic because she knows she can't win. A massive explosion of red and blue power erupts as their attacks collide, sending a shockwave through the arena. From the royal balcony, Risha watches the struggle and thinks to herself that she truly does not care if Cecilia dies here. Her gaze softens slightly as she remembers that Cecilia is only 14 years old. With a quiet sigh, Risha decides that she feels bad seeing a 14-year-old die after being so cruelly used by her own parents. Concluding that she has no other choice, she leaps forward with immense force, cracking the stone ground beneath her feet. A powerful blue aura rumbles and surrounds Risha as she floats in the air. She shoots across the arena towards Cecilia in a blinding flash of light and energy. From the brilliant light, a magnificent pair of fiery wings unfurls behind Risha as she hovers in the air. Cecilia can only stare up in utter shock, her face pale with disbelief at the incredible display of power. She takes an unsteady step back, her body wavering as she murmurs that this can't be happening. In a final, desperate act, Cecilia screams that she has to win and hurls one last fireball. The flame fizzles out harmlessly in the air, a pathetic display against Risha's immense power. Moving with blinding speed, Risha vanishes and reappears directly behind the stunned Cecilia. Cecilia turns her head in shock to find Risha's face just inches from her own. Risha's expression is cold and serious as she prepares to end the fight. A blade of pure, glowing blue energy materializes in Risha's hand. With her eyes narrowed in concentration, Risha declares that she will make this quick. She executes a swift, precise slash across Cecilia's side. A single tear escapes Cecilia's eye as she looks down, confused by the attack. A sharp cracking sound echoes as something fragile inside Cecilia's clothes shatters from the impact. Cecilia stares in horror as the pink liquid of the life-saving potion spurts from her chest, the vial now broken, while Risha's voice explains that now she doesn't have to drink it. Cecilia looks on in confusion as a system window announces that her half-awakened state has been forcefully evolved from A-class to S-class, but the process has been cancelled and the abnormal status removed. She is shocked to feel the chronic pain vanishing from her body as a new system window explains that the removal of her half-awakened state has resulted in the deactivation of all her magic circuits. A final, stark message from the system informs her that once magic circuits are deactivated, they can never be reactivated. Looking at her own hand in horror, Cecilia cries out as she feels her magical powers completely disappearing. She collapses to her knees and lets out a scream of pure despair, while Risha floats victoriously above her, flanked by enormous wings of fire. From the spectator stands, her enraged father, Archduke Billund, screams at her, asking if she is insane for putting away her magic. Cecilia looks down in utter defeat as her mother also yells from the stands, demanding to know what she is doing. The audience murmurs in confusion, wondering why Lady Cecilia is just sitting there and if Her Highness has won the duel, as Risha stands triumphantly with a fiery phoenix spirit behind her. The crowd erupts into a roaring cheer, celebrating the young princess's victory. Risha's feet touch the ground as she lands softly in front of the defeated and kneeling Cecilia. With empty eyes, Cecilia looks up at the princess and weakly tells her to just kill her. Glancing at her disappointed parents in the crowd, she decides that she would rather die than live in such disgrace. Risha looks down with a faint smile as Cecilia begs again to be killed. Turning her back on her cousin, Risha coolly reminds her of what she had said to her before. Looking over her shoulder with a sharp gaze, Risha states plainly that she hates Cecilia. She then explains with a calm smile that this hatred is the very reason she has chosen to let her live. Cecilia looks up with a lost expression as Risha tells her that she will now be forced to live as one of the lowly people she always looked down upon. Risha walks away, leaving Cecilia kneeling alone in the center of the arena. Cecilia clenches her fist in the dust, forced to admit to herself that she has been completely and utterly defeated. She slowly wraps her arms around herself, a new realization dawning on her. With tears welling in her eyes, she clutches herself tightly and thinks with a wave of overwhelming relief that she is alive. Sobs begin to rack her body as tears of relief drip onto the ground. She lets out a loud, unrestrained wail as the fiery phoenix spirit flies up into the bright sky. Power demonstration ended in the princess's victory, resulting in Cecilia Billund losing her rights of succession to the throne. Her father, Hastot Billund, is shown tearing at his hair in anguish as he is stripped of his title and rights as an archduke and demoted to the rank of count. The scene transitions to the glittering towers of the princess's palace. Inside, the emperor and Rupert are seen shouting Risha's name with expressions of sheer panic. Her family rushes to her side, frantically asking if she is hurt and demanding that someone call a doctor at once. Risha looks utterly annoyed as her father frets over her, wondering aloud how she could have fought with such small hands. She throws her arms up in exasperation and yells at her father and brother to stop, insisting that she is totally fine. She reminds them that they saw her win, but they continue to look at her with worried expressions. As the emperor reaches for her face, she again insists that she really is fine. The emperor ignores her protests and pulls her into a tight, heartfelt hug. With a pained and serious expression, he tells his dear Risha that he needs her to make a promise. He gently strokes her hair and asks her to promise she will never get into such a dangerous situation again. Looking into her eyes, he begs her to agree to his request. She softly agrees, and he embraces her again in a shower of hugs. Smiling warmly, Risha makes her father promise in return that he won't do anything dangerous without telling her first, to which he agrees. She then turns to her brother, Rupert, and asks for the same promise, and he smiles and agrees as well. Rupert looks at her with a serious gaze, reminding her that she must keep her promise. Risha smiles with a bright, happy smile and promises that she will. The Emperor, Risha, and Rupert share a warm and loving family hug. Tucked into her father's embrace, Risha's happy expression fades as she quietly thinks to herself that she is sorry for lying. The scene shifts to a large, imposing building under a starry night sky. A heavy, fortified door to a dungeon cell is shown from the inside. Bruised and hurt, Cecilia is thrown to the dusty floor, crying out in pain. As she stands up, she finds it strange that after a week of trying, she still hasn't figured out the reason for her imprisonment. Suddenly, a hand viciously grabs a fistful of her bright red hair. Her mother, the new Countess Billund, yanks her head back and fumes about how the magic she had maximized could have disappeared so quickly, revealing her plan to harvest it from Risha's corpse. Terrified Cecilia, held in her mother's cruel grasp, pleads for her life. With her face cast in shadow, the Countess menacingly asks her dear daughter how she managed to fail. Cecilia remembers a vision of a smiling Risha, telling her that her mother doesn't know anything. The Countess looks completely baffled by her daughter's cryptic memory. The scene flashes to Princess Anatrisna, standing confidently. Risha winks, and her eye glows with a brilliant blue light as she thinks to herself that it has been a while. She addresses the woman before her with a knowing smile as Countess Belland. When Risha tries to scan her with the system, she is met with an error message stating that the system is unable to verify the target's information. Risha grits her teeth in frustration, realizing that she is facing a member of the Apostolic Order. The Countess looks at her in utter shock, demanding to know how she could possibly know about them. Risha lunges forward with a determined expression, telling the Countess that she should take off her mask first. She lands a powerful punch to the Countess's jaw, sending blood flying as her mother screams that she is a little cockroach. In a flashback to their secret meeting, Risha asks a cloaked Cecilia, who was responsible for her half-awakened state. Cecilia reveals it was her mother, as a vision of the elegant Countess Belland appears against a backdrop of purple butterflies. Back in the dungeon, Cecilia explains to Risha that she knows it's hard to believe, but her mother suddenly changed into a completely different person. Risha's eyes narrow with interest as she processes Cecilia's strange testimony. She recalls that certain members of the Apostolic Order possess the ability to shapeshift, and a sinister, masked figure comes to her mind. A system window appears, announcing that Risha has completed a quest and acquired the B-class skill, the Breath of Stealth, which allows her to hide her appearance and movements while holding her breath. Risha thoughtfully considers her new skill, calculating that with the help of her magic, she could likely hold her breath for at least 30 minutes. Deciding to investigate the matter herself, Risha remembers the moment she punched the imposter posing as Countess Belland. A man wearing a dark hood groans in pain from the force of Risha's blow. He clutches his face in shock, stunned by the young princess's unexpected strength. Risha effortlessly dodges his clumsy attempt to grab her. With incredible force, she slams the imposter into the stone floor, creating a small crater. The bloodied man desperately pleads with Risha, offering to make her magic stronger if she lets him go. Risha looks down at him, with her arms crossed, coldly stating that she is not interested in his offer. She floats in the air above him, looking down on his defeated form. With an aura of immense power, she informs him that she doesn't need his help, because she is already the most powerful person there is. She tells him with a smirk that he can just continue to serve as her personal sandbag. Watching from the rubble, Cecilia realizes with dawning horror that the person Risha is beating was not her mother. She watches the one-sided beatdown, wondering how long the princess plans to continue punishing the criminal. A cold shudder runs down Cecilia's spine as she realizes that she could have easily suffered the same fate. Risha lifts the unconscious man by the collar of his cloak. Cecilia flinches as Risha unceremoniously drops his limp body to the ground with a thud. Wiping sweat from her brow, Risha flashes a wide, cheerful smile and exclaims that she feels much better now. Risha turns to the terrified Cecilia, remarking that she has been far too nice lately. She calls out to Carrot Top, getting her attention. With a serious expression, Risha commands Cecilia to tell her everything she knows. Cecilia begins her story, explaining that her mother started acting like a stranger ever since their family lost the rights to a gold mine. She recalls her father's frequent trips to the countryside, which her mother had always claimed were to visit his mistress. With her hands clasped nervously, Cecilia swears that she believes her father was actually receiving orders and support from someone in the countryside, but she has no idea who. Risha sighs with disappointment, concluding that Cecilia doesn't have any useful information for her. As Cecilia begins to stammer a protest, Risha grabs her by the back of her nightgown. Announcing that she'll just go and maim the person with more information, Risha starts dragging the terrified Cecilia out of the cell. A loud bang echoes through Count Bellande's chambers as he sleeps. He sits up in bed, angrily, demanding to know the source of the noise. He is shocked to see his bedroom door smashed in, with Princess Risha standing in the doorway holding his daughter Cecilia. With a flourish, Risha cheerfully announces her arrival. The enraged Count demands to know what Princess Risha thinks she is doing there. A glowing blade of blue energy forms in his hand as he prepares to defend himself. Risha points her own energy blade at him, stating that she has come to ask him what he knows about the Apostolic Order. The Count curses under his breath, clutching a black bracelet on his wrist. He yells that he won't be threatened, and a magical energy seems to spark from the bracelet. Risha easily overpowers him, stomping on his chest and pinning him to the ground. Her eyes glowing with purple light, she asks if it would be faster for her to impale him with her foot, or for him to simply tell her what she wants, prompting him to scream in agony. as she applies more pressure, he frantically agrees to tell her everything, if she will just stop. As he begins to speak, a thick, black liquid suddenly gushes from his body. The Count looks down at the strange substance, in utter confusion. The black sludge erupts from his body, and he screams as Risha leaps away with Cecilia. Cecilia screams in terror as the dark substance completely dissolves her father's body, leaving nothing behind. Risha looks on with annoyance, realizing the Order had a contingency plan in place. She clenches her fist in anger, recognizing the same cowardly tricks the Order used in her past life. The black sludge vanishes, leaving only a crater behind and Risha with a lousy feeling. The scene shifts to a grand mansion at night. A mysterious gray-haired man sits by a fireplace, remarking that Hastad has failed, though he didn't expect much from him anyway. His sharp green eyes narrow as he mentions hearing that someone has been trying to uncover their organization's secrets. He strokes his chin, pondering how it is that Hastad's daughter Cecilia is still alive. Leaning back in his chair, he decides that they will have to proceed to the next stage of their plan. A strange black marking is visible on the man's side. He stares into the flames of the fire, wondering aloud when a certain person will be coming back.